Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is show kindness to a stranger. Sometimes mercy is the thread that unravels your entire life. And sometimes when you save someone, you discover you were the one who needed saving all along. This is a story about blood, secrets, and the terrifying lengths we go to protect the people we love, even when we don't know their family. Hey beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Or if this is your first time here, welcome to a place where stories hit different. I hope you're having an incredible day wherever you are in this big wild world. Seriously, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. And listen, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss the stories we bring to life here. Each one is crafted to pull you in, make you feel, and leave you thinking long after it's over. So go ahead, subscribe, and let's take this journey together. Now let's dive in. The rain came down like nails. Elena Cruz pressed her palm against the diner's grease-stained window and watched the storm devour the highway. Lightning split the sky in jagged white scars, illuminating the empty parking lot for half a heartbeat before plunging it back into darkness. Thunder followed, low, violent, shaking the bones of the building. It was 2:47 a.m. and she was alone. The Bluebird Diner squatted on the edge of Route 9 like a tired old dog, its neon sign flickering the word "open" in sickly pink letters. Elena had worked the graveyard shift here for 3 years. 3 years of cold coffee, drunk truckers, and tips that barely covered her bus fare home. 3 years of smiling when her feet screamed and pretending she wasn't one bad week away from eviction. She was 26, but her hands looked 40. Cracked knuckles, burned scars from the fryer, nails bitten down to nothing. Just 2 more hours, she whispered to herself, rolling her neck until it cracked. 2 more hours and you can sleep. The diner smelled like grease, burnt toast, and something faintly sour that no amount of bleach could kill. The jukebox in the corner sat silent, unplugged to save on the electric bill. The only sound was the rain hammering the roof and the hum of the ancient refrigerator behind the counter. Elena grabbed a rag and wiped down the same table for the 3rd time. She didn't need to. It was already clean. But if she stopped moving, she'd start thinking. And if she started thinking, she'd remember that her rent was 12 days overdue, that her phone had been shut off yesterday, that she'd eaten nothing but stale donuts and black coffee for 2 days straight. She'd start thinking about how alone she was. The bell above the door chimed. Elena's head snapped up, heart lurching. But it was just the wind. The door hung half open, rain slanting in and soaking the grimy welcome mat. She hurried over and shoved it closed, throwing the deadbolt for good measure. Ridiculous, she muttered, wiping rainwater off her apron. Storm's gonna rip this whole place apart. She turned back toward the counter. And froze. The bathroom door. The women's restroom at the far end of the diner, near the kitchen. It was closed. It had been open 5 minutes ago. He was sure of it. Elena's pulse quickened. Hello. No answer. Diner's closed for cleaning, she called out, louder this time. You need to leave. Still nothing. She moved slowly toward the bathroom, her sneakers squeaking on the checkerboard tile. Her fingers curled around the pepper spray in her apron pocket. The cheap kind from the gas station, probably expired, but it was all she had. I'm serious, she said, her voice shaking now. I'll call the cops. She wouldn't. The phone line had been disconnected last month. But whoever was in there didn't need to know that. Elena stopped in front of the bathroom door. It was one of those old wooden ones, painted about 50 times, each layer chipping away to reveal the colors underneath. She pressed her ear against it. Silence. A sound. Faint. Muffled. A cry. Not an adult cry. Not a drunk stumbling in from the storm. Baby. Elena's breath caught. She grabbed the handle and twisted, but the door wouldn't budge. Locked from the inside. Hey. She pounded on the door. Open up. Is someone in there? The crying grew louder. A desperate, ragged wail that made Elena's chest tighten. She stepped back and slammed her shoulder into the door. Pain exploded down her arm, but the door didn't give. She tried again. And again. On the 4th hit, the lock splintered and the door burst open. The bathroom was empty. Oh, not empty. On the floor, wedged between the toilet and the sink, was a bundle of fabric. And it was moving. Elena dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she pulled back the layers. A coat, expensive, black wool soaked with rain and something darker. Blood. Fresh blood still wet. Beneath it, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, was a baby. A newborn. Maybe a week old. Maybe less. The infant's face was scrunched and red, tiny fists flailing as it screamed. Its umbilical cord stump was still visible, clamped with a plastic clip. The baby wore nothing but a diaper and a single item around its neck. A silver pendant on a delicate chain, far too large and heavy for something so small. Elena stared, her mind blank with shock. Someone had left this child here. In a locked bathroom. In the middle of a storm. Abandoned. She scooped the baby into her arms, instinct overriding thought. The crying softened as she pressed the infant to her chest, murmuring nonsense in a voice that didn't sound like her own. "It's okay. You're okay. I've got you." But even as she said it, her heart was hammering. Because this wasn't okay. None of this was okay. Elena looked around wildly, as if the answers might be written on the cracked tiles or the water-stained ceiling. The coat. She grabbed it, searching the pockets. No ID. No note. Nothing except the blood. And the pendant. She lifted it carefully, studying it in the dim light. It was silver, heavy, engraved with a symbol she didn't recognize. A serpent coiled around a rose, intricate and deliberate. Beautiful and wrong. "Who are you?" Elena whispered, looking down at the baby. The infant had stopped crying now, staring up at her with dark, unfocused eyes. "Who left you here?" Outside, the thunder rumbled like a warning. Elena's mind raced. She should call someone. The police. Child services. Someone whose job it was to handle this. But she knew what would happen. They'd take the baby. Put it in the system. Foster care. The same system that had chewed Elena up and spit her out when she was 8 years old. The same system that had taught her that the only person you could rely on was yourself. She looked down at the tiny, helpless face in her arms. And she made a choice. "Just for tonight," she whispered. "I'll keep you safe tonight, and tomorrow I'll figure it out." She didn't know she'd just signed her own death warrant. She didn't know that across the city, in a mansion built on blood and fear, a man was watching a screen, watching her, with eyes that hadn't blinked in 3 minutes. She didn't know that the baby in her arms was worth more than her life. And she didn't know that the choice she'd just made would lead her to the most dangerous man in the state. A man who would look at her face and see a ghost. Because Elena Cruz had no idea who she really was. Or who was coming for her. Elena's apartment was a box. 12 feet by 12 feet. A mattress on the floor in one corner, a hot plate and mini fridge in another. A cracked mirror nailed above a chipped sink. The bathroom was shared with 3 other tenants on her floor. A paranoid veteran who screamed in his sleep. A sex worker named Destiny who always smiled at her in the hallway. And a college dropout who sold weed from his room and never made eye contact. The building smelled like mildew and old cooking oil. The radiator clanged but never actually produced heat. Elena had stuffed towels along the bottom of her door to keep the roaches out, but they still found their way in. This was home. She kicked the door shut behind her and stood in the darkness, the baby still clutched to her chest. The infant had fallen asleep on the bus ride over, tiny body relaxed against her, breath soft and even. Elena hadn't moved the entire 30-minute ride, terrified that any motion would wake the child and draw attention. No one had looked twice at her. Just another tired woman on the night bus. Invisible. Elena flicked on the overhead light, a bare bulb that hummed and flickered, and carefully laid the baby on her mattress, surrounding it with pillows so it wouldn't roll. The child stirred but didn't wake. She stood there for a long moment just staring. What the hell had she done? Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to stop the tremor, but it spread up her arms into her chest, until her whole body was vibrating with adrenaline and fear and something else she couldn't name. "Okay," she whispered. Think. The baby needed things. Diapers. Formula. Bottles. Clothes. A crib, or at least something safer than her filthy mattress. She had $17 in her wallet and maybe 3 in coins scattered around the apartment. $20 to care for a human life. Elena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that startled her. She grabbed her phone from her pocket, then remembered it was dead. Cut off yesterday for non-payment. She'd been meaning to scrape together enough for the bill, but then her manager had cut her hours and it didn't matter now. She knelt beside the mattress and studied the baby more carefully. A girl, she thought, though she wasn't certain. The diaper was soaked through, the thin hospital blanket damp and cold. The silver pendant lay against the infant's chest, still attached to that delicate chain. Elena reached for it then hesitated. Something about the pendant made her uneasy. It was too expensive, too deliberate. The kind of thing that meant something to someone. The kind of thing people might come looking for. He should get rid of it. Throw it away. But something stopped her. Instead, she unclasped the chain and set the pendant on the windowsill, where the weak morning light would hit it when the sun came up. If she needed to return the baby, when she returned the baby, it might be important. The blood-stained coat was still in her bag. She pulled it out and examined it more closely. Designer label. Cashmere blend. Probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. The blood was concentrated on the left side, near the hem. Not spattered. More like someone had been bleeding and wrapped themselves in it. The mother? Elena's chest tightened. What had happened to this baby's mother? She shoved the coat under her mattress out of sight. Then she stripped the infant carefully, checking for injuries, for anything wrong. The baby was perfect. Frighteningly perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes. A small birthmark on the left shoulder blade, shaped like a crescent moon. "Who are you?" Elena whispered again. The baby's eyes opened, dark, impossibly dark, like looking into deep water, and seemed to focus on Elena's face. The infant didn't cry. Just watched her with an intensity that made Elena's skin prickle. "Don't look at me like that," Elena said softly. "I don't know what I'm doing either." By the time the sun came up, Elena had fashioned a makeshift diaper from a torn t-shirt and fed the baby sugar water from a cleaned-out jar. It wasn't enough, she knew that, but it was all she had until the bodega on the corner opened at 7. She'd also made a decision. She couldn't keep this baby. That was insane. But she also couldn't just hand the child over to strangers who might not care, who might not fight for her, who might let her disappear into a system that ground up children like meat. Elena would find the mother herself. Or the father. Whoever had left this baby at the diner had done it for a reason. Maybe they were in trouble. Maybe they needed help. Maybe they were coming back. She'd give them 3 days. 72 hours. If no one claimed the baby by then, she'd figure out what to do next. It was a terrible plan. She knew that. But it was the only one she had. At 6:45 a.m., Elena wrapped the baby in her only clean sweater and headed downstairs. The bodega was run by an old man named Samir who'd been kind to her when she first moved in. Let her run a tab once when she was short on rent. Never asked questions when she came in at odd hours looking like death. The bell chimed as she pushed through the door. Samir looked up from behind the counter, his weathered face creasing into a smile that died the moment he saw what she was carrying. "Elena." His eyes went to the baby, then back to her face. "What is this?" "Long story," she said quickly, moving toward the baby aisle. There wasn't much. This wasn't that kind of neighborhood, but she grabbed what she could. A small pack of newborn diapers. 2 bottles. A can of formula. Baby wipes. She brought everything to the counter and watched Samir ring it up, her heart sinking as the total climbed. $23.47. "I only have 20, she said quietly. Samir looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached over and took the formula off the pile, setting it aside. 1975. Elena's throat tightened. "Samir. The formula is from me," he said firmly. He bagged everything and handed it to her. Then he leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Elena. Whose baby is that?" "A friend's," she lied. "I'm just helping out for a few days." "What friend?" "You don't have friends." The words should have stung, but they didn't because they were true. Elena had learned a long time ago that friends were a luxury she couldn't afford. People asked questions. They got involved. They complicated things. "It's temporary," Elena said. "Just a few days." Samir's expression darkened. "You are in trouble." "I'm always in trouble." "Not like this." He glanced toward the window, then back at her. "There were men here yesterday, after you left for work, asking about you." Elena's blood went cold. "What?" "2 men. Suits. They wanted to know where you lived, where you worked, who you talked to." Samir shook his head. "I told them nothing. But Elena, these were not police. These were not good men." "What did they look like?" "Tall. White. One had a scar here." He traced a line down his left cheek. The other wore sunglasses inside. "At night." He lowered his voice. "Elena, if you are involved in something." I'm not. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. She was involved. The moment she picked up that baby, she'd stepped into something far bigger than herself. The men were looking for the baby. They had to be. I have to go, Elena said, grabbing the bag. Elena, wait. But she was already out the door, heart hammering, the baby pressed tight against her chest. She didn't go back to her apartment. Instead she walked. Block after block, keeping to the crowds, constantly checking over her shoulder. The morning rush was in full swing. People pouring out of subway stations, heading to jobs they hated, living lives of quiet desperation just like hers. But now, for the first time in years, Elena felt visible. Exposed. She ducked into a public library on 5th Street and found a corner in the children's section. While the baby slept in her arms, Elena used one of the public computers to search for news about abandoned infants, missing children, anything that might give her a clue. Nothing. She tried different search terms. Missing baby. Newborn kidnapping. Infant abandoned New York. Still nothing recent. Nothing that matched. It was like this child didn't exist. Elena sat back, staring at the screen. The pendant. Maybe that was the key. She pulled out her phone, still dead, and cursed under her breath. She'd have to find another way to research the symbol. Excuse me. Elena's head snapped up. A woman stood beside her table. Mid-40s, sharply dressed in a gray pantsuit, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. He looked like a lawyer. Or a cop. Or something worse. Can I help you? Elena asked, her voice carefully neutral. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's a beautiful baby. How old? Every instinct Elena had screamed danger. She's mine, Elena said flatly. Is there something you need? I'm sure she is. The woman's gaze lingered on the infant, then moved to Elena's face. You just look so young to be a mother. And so tired. If you're from Child Services. I'm not. The woman pulled out a business card and set it on the table. But if you ever need help, financial assistance, medical care, anything, please call me. We help struggling mothers. No questions asked. Elena didn't touch the card. We're fine. Of course. The woman's smile widened. Just know that we're here. For the baby's sake. She walked away, heels clicking on the library floor. Elena waited exactly 30 seconds. Then she grabbed the baby and ran. She spent the rest of the day moving. Coffee shop to park to department store to another library. Never staying anywhere longer than an hour. Never making eye contact. Feeding the baby in bathroom stalls, changing diapers on park benches, always watching. By nightfall, Elena was exhausted. The baby was fussy, crying more frequently, sensing Elena's stress. She needed to rest. Needed to think. She couldn't go home. Not if people were looking for her there. There was only one place she could go. Destiny answered on the third knock, wrapping her silk robe tighter around her waist. She took one look at Elena, disheveled, wild-eyed, clutching a screaming infant, and stepped aside without a word. Girl, Destiny said as Elena stumbled into the apartment, what the hell did you get yourself into? Elena opened her mouth to answer. And then finally she started to cry. Destiny's apartment was everything Elena's wasn't. Warm. Colorful. Alive. String lights draped across the ceiling, casting everything in a soft amber glow. The walls were covered with tapestries and framed photographs. Destiny with friends, with family, living a life that seemed full and vibrant. The air smelled like vanilla candles and jasmine incense. Sit, Destiny commanded, pointing to a worn velvet couch piled with throw pillows. I'll make tea. Elena sank into the cushions, still holding the baby against her chest. The crying had stopped, replaced by exhausted hiccups. The infant's tiny hand clutched Elena's shirt, holding on like Elena was the only solid thing in the world. Maybe she was. Destiny returned with 2 steaming mugs and set them on the coffee table. She was 32, tall and graceful, with box braids that fell to her waist and eyes that had seen too much but still somehow remained kind. She'd been working the building for 4 years, and in that time she'd never once judged Elena for being broke, alone, or lost. You gonna tell me what's going on? Destiny asked gently, settling into the armchair across from her. Or do I have to guess? Elena's voice came out broken. I found her. At the diner. Someone left her in the bathroom. Destiny's eyes widened. Left her? You mean abandoned? Locked in? In the middle of a storm. She was just there. Elena looked down at the sleeping baby. I couldn't leave her. So you brought her home. I was going to call someone. I was. Elena's hands tightened around the infant. But then I thought about what would happen to her. The system. Foster care. I've been there, Des. I know what it's like. Oh, honey. Destiny leaned forward, her expression pained. That's not your burden to carry. Then whose is it? Elena's voice cracked. Who's going to fight for her if I don't? Destiny was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question Elena had been dreading. Have you called the police? No. Elena. People are looking for her. The words tumbled out fast, desperate. Men came to Samir's asking about me. A woman approached me at the library. They know I have her, Des. And they're not cops. Destiny's face went very still. What kind of men? I don't know. Samir said they wore suits. One had a scar. Elena pulled the silver pendant from her pocket and held it up. This was around her neck. I think it means something. I think whoever left her, they're dangerous. Destiny stared at the pendant and something flickered across her face. Recognition? Fear? Des. Elena pressed. Do you know what this is? Put it away, Destiny said sharply. Right now. Elena's heart lurched. You do know. I said put it away. Destiny stood abruptly, pacing to the window. She pulled the curtain back an inch, scanning the street below, then let it fall. When she turned back, her face was pale. Elena, listen to me very carefully. That symbol, the serpent and the rose, that belongs to the DeLuca family. The name meant nothing to Elena. Who? You don't watch the news? You don't read the papers? Destiny laughed, but there was no humor in it. The DeLucas own half this city. Casinos, nightclubs, construction companies. All of it legitimate on paper. But everyone knows the truth. They're the biggest crime family on the East Coast. Elena's mouth went dry. Mafia. Mafia, syndicate, organized crime. Call it whatever you want. The point is you don't mess with them. You don't steal from them. And you definitely don't take their children. Destiny crossed back to the couch, gripping Elena's shoulders. If that baby belongs to them. She was abandoned, Elena insisted. Someone threw her away. Or someone took her from them. Destiny's grip tightened. Think about it. A designer coat. Blood. No note. A baby with a pendant worth more than this entire building. That's not abandonment, Elena. That's a crime scene. The room seemed to tilt. Elena looked down at the infant in her arms, this tiny, perfect, innocent thing, and felt ice flood her veins. What do I do? She whispered. Destiny hesitated. You give her back. To who? I don't even know. To them. The family. You find a way to contact them, you tell them you found the baby and you hand her over. Destiny's voice was urgent now. These people don't forgive, Elena. They don't forget. If they think you took her, if they think you're involved in whatever happened. I'm not giving her to criminals, Elena said firmly. Then you're signing your own death warrant. The words hung in the air between them. Elena stood still, cradling the baby. I need to go. Elena, don't be stupid. Thank you for the tea. Elena moved toward the door. And for not turning me in. Where are you going? I don't know. Elena looked back at Destiny, and for the first time in years she let someone see the fear in her eyes. But I can't stay here. I won't bring this to your door. Destiny's expression softened. She crossed to a small desk in the corner and pulled out a wad of cash from a drawer. Take this. I can't. Take it. Destiny pressed $200 into Elena's hand. Get a burner phone. Find somewhere safe to lay low. And for God's sake, figure out what you're going to do before they figure out where you are. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Destiny walked her to the door, then paused. Elena? That baby. She looks like she belongs to you. Like she was always meant to be yours. I don't know what that means, but trust your gut. You've got good instincts. They've kept you alive this long. Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She slipped out into the hallway and descended the stairs quickly, every shadow suddenly menacing, every sound a potential threat. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Elena pulled her jacket tighter around the baby and started walking, her mind racing. The DeLuca family. Organized crime. She'd stolen a mob boss's baby. Well, not stolen. Saved. But would they see it that way? 3 blocks from the apartment, Elena ducked into a 24-hour convenience store and bought a burner phone with Destiny's money. Her hands shook as she activated it, the clerk eyeing her suspiciously but saying nothing. Back on the street, Elena found a recessed doorway and pulled up the phone's browser. She searched DeLuca Family New York. The results flooded her screen. News articles. Court documents. Society page photos. The DeLuca empire stretched back 3 generations. A dynasty built on blood and brutality masked by charitable donations and political contributions. And at the center of it all was one name, Marco DeLuca. Elena clicked on an image. The man staring back at her from the screen was maybe 40, dark-haired and sharp-featured, wearing a tuxedo at some gala event. He looked like he'd been carved from marble, all hard edges and cold eyes. Handsome in a dangerous way. The kind of man who could smile while ordering your death. The article described him as a businessman and philanthropist. But the comments section told a different story. Murderer. Tyrant. Monster. Elena's gaze drifted to the photo beside him. A woman in a stunning red gown, elegant and poised. The caption read, Marco DeLuca and wife Isabel at the Metropolitan Museum Gala. Wife. The baby's mother? Elena zoomed in on the woman's face, searching for similarities. Dark eyes. High cheekbones. A certain delicacy to the features. Maybe. She clicked back to the main search results and found something else. A news article from 2 weeks ago. DeLuca empire in turmoil as internal power struggle escalates. Elena skimmed the article. Rumors of infighting within the family. Whispers of betrayal. Anonymous sources claiming Marco DeLuca was conducting a purge of his inner circle, eliminating anyone he deemed disloyal. And then buried near the end. Sources close to the family confirm that Isabel DeLuca gave birth to a daughter 3 weeks ago, though the family has released no official statement or photographs. 3 weeks ago. Elena looked down at the baby in her arms. The timing matched. Oh God, she whispered. This wasn't just any mob boss's daughter. This was Marco DeLuca's daughter. The most dangerous man in the city. A man who was already at war with his own people. And somehow this baby had ended up in that diner bathroom. Abandoned. Hidden. Marked for death. Elena's mind raced. If Marco was purging traitors, if someone in his inner circle wanted to hurt him, what better way than to take his child? And what better way to expose the traitor than to plant the baby somewhere and see who came for her? The realization hit her like a physical blow. The baby wasn't abandoned. She was bait. And Elena had taken it. The phone in her pocket buzzed. Elena jumped, nearly dropping it. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. Her heart hammered. No one had this number. She just activated the phone 15 minutes ago. Unless someone was watching her right now. Elena looked up sharply, scanning the street. A few late-night pedestrians. A homeless man sleeping in a doorway. Cars passing. Nothing suspicious. The phone buzzed again. Elena's finger hovered over the answer button. Every instinct screamed not to pick up. But she needed answers. And maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to end this before it got worse. She answered. Hello. Silence. Then a man's voice. Controlled. You have something that belongs to me. Elena's blood turned to ice. Who is this? You know who this is. Pause. And I know who you are, Elena Cruz. 26 years old. Orphan. No family. No real friends. Living in a building that should have been condemned 5 years ago. Working nights at a diner that can't even afford to keep its lights on. Terror flooded through her. How did you? I know everything. The voice was calm, almost gentle. I know you found my daughter in that bathroom. I know you brought her home instead of calling the authorities. I know you've been running all day, scared, confused, trying to figure out what to do. If you know where I am, Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady, why haven't you come for her? Because I wanted to see what you would do. Another pause. And you surprised me. What do you want? I want you to keep her safe for one more night. The words were unexpected. Tomorrow at noon I'll send someone to collect her. A woman named Sophia. She'll be wearing a blue coat and carrying a yellow envelope. Give the baby to her and you walk away. No harm. No questions. And if I don't? Then you die. The words were delivered without emotion. And my daughter dies. And everyone you've ever spoken to dies. Because that's what happens when you cross my family, Miss Cruz. Everyone pays. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. You want me to trust you? Trust that you'll just let me walk away? No. The voice softened. I want you to trust yourself. You protected my daughter when you didn't have to. You put yourself at risk for a child you didn't know. That means something to me. I don't believe you. You don't have to. A slight pause and then, but answer me this. Why did you do it? Why didn't you call the police the moment you found her? Elena looked down at the baby, this tiny life that had somehow become her responsibility. Because I've been her, she said quietly. Alone. Wanted. Thrown away like trash. And I swore I'd never let that happen to someone else if I could help it. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, what's your favorite color, Elena? The question was so unexpected that Elena almost laughed. What? Your favorite color? What is it? Icy green. Why does that? The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone, her mind reeling. What the hell just happened? And then she saw it. Across the street, beneath a flickering streetlight, stood a man. A dark suit. Watching her. Their eyes met. Elena ran. She didn't know where she was going. Just away. Away from the man, away from the phone call, away from the nightmare her life had become in the space of 24 hours. The baby bounced against her chest, crying now, startled by the sudden movement. Elena clutched her tighter, weaving through alleys and side streets, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. She glanced back once. The man was following. Not running. Just walking. Steady. Inevitable. Elena turned a corner and found herself facing a chain-link fence. Dead end. No, no, no. He spun back around. The man stood at the mouth of the alley, backlit by streetlights. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just watched. Elena pressed herself against the fence, holding the baby with one arm and reaching into her pocket with the other. The pepper spray. Her fingers closed around it. Stay back, she warned, her voice shaking. I swear to God I'll. The man held up both hands, showing they were empty. Then he reached into his jacket. Elena tensed and pulled out a yellow envelope. He dropped it on the ground and stepped back. Sophia couldn't make it tomorrow, he said quietly. His voice was different from the one on the phone. Younger. Almost apologetic. So the boss sent me instead. Just put the baby down and walk away. That's all you have to do. Elena's hand tightened on the pepper spray. And if I don't? The man's expression was unreadable. Then I have to take her from you. And neither of us wants that. You're not touching her. Miss Cruz. I said no. Elena's voice rose. You people threw her away. Left her in a bathroom to die. And now you want me to just hand her back like nothing happened. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Elena was screaming now, all the fear and exhaustion and rage boiling over. Tell me why a 3-week-old baby was locked in a bathroom with blood on her coat. Tell me why you're following me. Tell me why any of this is happening. The man took a step forward. Elena sprayed him. The pepper spray hit him square in the face. He stumbled back, cursing, hands flying to his eyes. Elena bolted. She vaulted the fence. One-handed, the baby pressed to her chest, and dropped into the alley beyond. Pain shot through her ankle, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind her, she heard the man shouting into a phone. Calling for backup. She ran harder. 2 blocks. 3. Her vision blurred with tears and terror. The baby was screaming now, picking up on Elena's panic. I'm sorry, Elena gasped. I'm so sorry, baby, I'm... She rounded another corner and slammed directly into someone. A woman. Blonde. Late 30s. Wearing a long black coat. She caught Elena's arms, steadying her, and for a moment Elena thought maybe, this was someone who could help. Then the woman looked down at the baby. And smiled. Hello, little one, she said softly. I've been looking everywhere for you. She pulled a gun from her coat. Now, the woman said, her smile never wavering, let's have a conversation about who you're going to give that baby to. Because trust me, sweetheart, you really don't want it to be Marco. Elena's world narrowed to 3 things. The gun, the woman's smile, and the weight of the baby against her chest. I don't know who you are, Elena said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the terror flooding her veins. But I'm not giving her to you. The woman's smile widened. Oh, sweetie. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not when the alternative is watching this precious baby's head. Elena moved. He didn't think. Didn't plan. She just acted on pure survival instinct honed from years of living on the edge. She threw herself sideways, using her body to shield the baby as she crashed into a row of trash cans. The metallic clang was deafening. Garbage scattered across the alley. The gun went off. The bullet sparked off the brick wall 6 inches from Elena's head. She rolled, scrambled to her feet and ran, again, her entire body running on fumes and fear and something primal that refused to let her stop. You stupid girl, the woman shrieked behind her. Do you have any idea what you're protecting? She's not innocent. None of them are. Elena didn't look back. She burst out of the alley onto a main street. Lights, people, traffic. Witnesses. Safety in numbers. She pushed through a group of college students, ignored their protests and ducked into the first open door she saw. A bar. The rusty anchor was the kind of dive that had seen better decades. Dark wood, darker lighting and the smell of beer and regret. A handful of patrons hunched over drinks, and a bartender with arms like tree trunks looked up as Elena stumbled inside. We don't allow kids in, he started. Please. Elena's voice cracked. Someone's following me. Call the police. Please. The bartender's expression shifted. He reached beneath the bar, for a phone Elena hoped, not a weapon, and that's when the door opened behind her. The blonde woman walked in. No gun visible now. Just a pleasant smile and empty hands. There you are, honey, she said brightly, moving toward Elena. I've been so worried. You shouldn't run off like that with the baby. I don't know her, Elena said desperately to the bartender. She's not. Postpartum depression, the woman said smoothly, addressing the room. It's been so hard on her. The doctor said it might get bad, but I never thought. She looked at Elena with such convincing concern that Elena almost doubted her own memory of the gun. Please let me take you home. Both of you. The baby needs proper care. The bartender looked between them, uncertain. She had a gun, Elena said. In the alley. She tried to. Oh, sweetheart. The woman's voice dripped with sympathy. You're hearing things again. Remember what the therapist said about the paranoia. She took another step forward. Just come with me. Let's get you and the baby somewhere safe. Elena backed up until she hit the bar. The baby was crying, had been crying, but Elena had stopped hearing it, her mind laser-focused on survival. I'll call someone, the bartender said slowly. Social services maybe. They can sort this out. No, both women said simultaneously. The bartender's eyes narrowed. That's when the door opened again. 3 men walked in. Suits. Professional. The kind of men who made a room go quiet just by existing. The one in front had salt and pepper hair and the bearing of someone who'd been giving orders his entire life. His eyes found Elena immediately. Miss Cruz, he said. My name is Vincent Corleone. I work for Marco DeLuca. You need to come with us. Right now. The blonde woman's pleasant mask cracked. She's coming with me, Vincent. No, Vincent said flatly. She's not. Does Marco know you're here? Because I'm pretty sure he'd be very interested to know that his loyal lieutenant is making moves without permission. Vincent's jaw tightened. And I'm pretty sure he'd be very interested to know that his brother's widow is trying to kidnap his daughter in a public bar. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Brother's widow? The woman, whoever she was, laughed. Widow. How delicate. You mean the woman whose husband Marco murdered? Antonio betrayed the family, Vincent said coldly. He knew the consequences. He tried to protect his niece. The woman's composure shattered completely. He tried to save an innocent baby from being used as a pawn in Marco's sick game, and your boss put a bullet in his head for it. The entire bar had gone silent. Even the jukebox seemed to have stopped. Elena looked down at the baby in her arms, this tiny person at the center of a war she didn't understand, and felt something harden in her chest. Everyone needs to back off, she said loudly. Right now. All eyes turned to her. I don't care about your family drama, Elena continued, her voice shaking but firm. I don't care about betrayals or power struggles or whatever mobster bullshit you people are involved in. All I care about is this baby. And none of you, She looked from Vincent to the blonde woman. None of you are taking her until I know she'll be safe. She'll be safe with her father, Vincent said. Her father who's apparently killing his own family? Elena shot back. Yeah, that sounds real safe. You don't understand what's happening here, Vincent said. Then explain it to me. Elena's voice rose. Stop treating me like I'm stupid or crazy or in the way and just tell me the truth. Who is this baby? Why was she in that bathroom? And why does everyone want her dead? The question hung in the air. Vincent and the blonde woman stared at each other, some silent battle of wills playing out. Finally Vincent spoke. Not here, he said. Too many ears. But if you come with us I'll tell you everything. Don't trust him, the woman hissed. He's Marco's dog. He'll say whatever it takes to. And you had a gun to my head 30 seconds ago, Elena interrupted. So forgive me if I don't trust you either. The woman's expression twisted. That baby is my niece. My blood. I have more right to her than some waitress who doesn't know anything about our world. Maybe that's exactly why she's safer with me, Elena said quietly. The words surprised even herself. But as she said them, Elena realized they were true. This baby, this tiny helpless person had survived being abandoned, hunted and fought over. And somehow, against all logic, she'd ended up with Elena. Maybe that wasn't an accident. Maybe that was the whole point. Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went pale. We need to leave. Now. Why? Elena asked. Because Marco just found out his daughter is in a bar in the middle of hostile territory, and he's coming himself. Vincent looked genuinely afraid for the first time. And when Marco DeLuca shows up, people die. They left through the back. Vincent's men moved with military precision, flanking Elena as they hustled her through the kitchen and into a waiting SUV. The blonde woman tried to follow, but one of Vincent's men blocked her path. Tell Marco I'll be in touch, she called after them. This isn't over. The SUV peeled away from the curb before Elena even had her seatbelt on. She clutched the baby tighter, looking around wildly. Vincent sat beside her, the other two men in front. Where are we going? Elena demanded. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. Vincent turned to her and his expression was tired. Look, Miss Cruz. I'm going to be honest with you because I think you've earned that much. Yes, I work for Marco DeLuca. Because he's dangerous. But he's not the monster you think he is. He killed his own brother. Antonio tried to sell the baby to a rival family, Vincent said bluntly. He was going to hand over Marco's daughter, his own niece, to the Bratva in exchange for protection and a cut of their territory. Marco found out and he handled it. Elena's stomach turned. That woman said Antonio was trying to protect the baby. Isabel, that's the blonde woman, Antonio's widow. She believes what she needs to believe to justify her husband's betrayal. But I was there. I saw the communication. Antonio was a traitor. Vincent's voice softened. But you're right about one thing. That baby is in danger. Not from Marco. From the people Antonio was working with. The Russians. The Bratva, yes. And others. When Antonio disappeared with the baby 3 days ago, it started a war. Everyone assumed Marco had her hidden away, protected. But then you found her. Vincent looked at Elena carefully. And suddenly the most powerful man in the city has a weakness. A loose thread. And everyone wants to pull it. Elena's mind raced. So the baby being in that bathroom, that wasn't an accident. We don't think so. Someone took her from Antonio after he died. Someone who wanted Marco to suffer. Who wanted him vulnerable. And they left her where they thought no one would look. Vincent paused. But you found her. And you didn't run to the highest bidder. You just protected her. Why does everyone keep acting like that's so surprising? Elena asked bitterly. She's a baby. What was I supposed to do? Most people would have called the police. Or sold the information. Vincent studied her. But you did neither. Why? Elena looked down at the infant in her arms. The baby had finally stopped crying, dark eyes fixed on Elena's face with that same unsettling intensity. Because I know what it's like to be unwanted, Elena said quietly. To be something people only value for what they can get from you. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Especially not someone this small. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. Marco needs to hear this. Wait. But Vincent was already dialing. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered. The same voice from earlier. It controlled. Vincent. Boss. I have her. The baby and the woman. Both safe. Boss. Where? Heading to the safe house on Riverside. 10 minutes. Another pause, longer this time. How is my daughter? Vincent looked at Elena. She hesitated, then leaned toward the phone. She's okay, Elena said. Hungry. But okay. Silence on the other end. Then, and you, Miss Cruz? How are you? The question was so unexpected, so strangely gentle, that Elena didn't know how to respond. I've been better, she finally said. Something that might have been a laugh came through the phone. I imagine so. Vincent, keep them there. I'm 20 minutes out. Boss, is that wise? If the Bratva has people watching. I don't care. The gentleness was gone, replaced by cold steel. My daughter has been missing for 3 days. I want to see her. And I want to meet the woman brave enough, or stupid enough, to protect her from my entire organization. The line went dead. Elena looked at Vincent. He's really coming? He really is. Vincent looked almost sympathetic. For what it's worth, Miss Cruz, you're either about to become the most protected person in New York, or the most hunted. It all depends on what Marco sees when he looks at you. What do you mean? I mean, Marco DeLuca doesn't trust anyone. Hasn't in years. Not since. Vincent trailed off, shaking his head. You'll understand when you meet him. Just be honest. He can smell a lie from a mile away. And whatever you do, don't try to negotiate. Don't make demands. Just tell him the truth. The truth about what? About why you saved his daughter, Vincent said. Because that answer might just save your life. The safe house was an industrial loft in a converted warehouse overlooking the river. Top floor. One entrance. Bulletproof windows. The kind of place that could withstand a siege. Vincent's men swept the space, checking corners and securing exits, while Vincent settled Elena on a leather couch. Someone brought her water and a blanket. Someone else brought baby supplies, formula, diapers, a clean set of clothes. How did you have all this ready? Elena asked. We've been preparing for her return since the moment she disappeared, Vincent said simply. Marco's been, not himself. This is the first time I've heard him sound almost human in 3 days. Elena fed the baby, changed her, wrapped her in the soft new blanket. The infant seemed to relax, settling into Elena's arms with a small sigh. She likes you, Vincent observed. She doesn't know any better, Elena said. But she couldn't deny the warmth spreading through her chest. The rightness of holding this small life. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Then the door opened. The man who walked in seemed to take up all the space in the room. Marco DeLuca was taller than Elena had imagined, broader, more solid. He wore a dark suit that probably cost more than Elena's yearly salary, and his face was exactly as she'd seen in the photos. Sharp, handsome, dangerous. But his eyes. God, his eyes. They went straight to the baby, and everything in his expression cracked open. Pain, relief, grief, love. All of it visible for just a heartbeat before the mask slammed back into place. He crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped in front of Elena. She'd expected him to take the baby immediately. To grab his daughter and leave without a word. Instead he knelt. He knelt in front of Elena, bringing himself to eye level, and looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully in Elena's arms. She's perfect, he whispered. You kept her safe. Elena's throat tightened. I tried. Marco's gaze lifted to her face. And then something strange happened. His eyes widened. His breath caught. He stared at Elena like he was seeing a ghost. It's not possible, he breathed. What? Marco reached out slowly as if afraid Elena might disappear and touched her face. His hand was shaking. Your eyes. You have her eyes. Whose eyes? But Marco wasn't listening. He was staring at Elena with an expression of absolute shock. Her recognition. How old are you? He demanded. 26. Why does that? When's your birthday? March 15th. What is happening? Marco's hand fell away. He stood abruptly, backing up several steps, his face gone white. Vincent. Get me the file. The one from '99. The adoption records. Boss. Vincent looked confused. Yow. Marco's voice was a whip crack. Vincent scrambled for his phone. Marco turned back to Elena, and there was something wild in his eyes now. Desperate. What's your full name? Elena Cruz. But I was in foster care. I don't know my birth name. March 15, 1999, Marco said, almost to himself. The hospital in Queens. The private adoption arranged through Father Michaels. He looked at Elena again. Green. Your favorite color is green. Elena's blood went cold. How did you know that? Because I asked for it, Marco said hoarsely. 26 years ago when they made me give you away, I asked what your favorite color was. You were 8 months old. Barely a baby. And the woman who was fostering you said you always reached for the green toys. Always smiled at green things. The room spun. No, Elena whispered. I wanted to remember something about you, Marco continued, his voice breaking. Something small. Something that was just yours. So I asked. And they told me green. You're lying. Boss, Vincent said urgently, holding up his phone. The adoption records. Elena Maria DeLuca. Adopted out to the foster system March 18, 1999. Birth date March 15. Mother deceased in childbirth. Father requested closed adoption to protect the child, Marco finished. His eyes were full of tears. To keep her safe from my world. To give her a chance at a normal life. Elena couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. You're not. I'm your father, Marco said softly. I gave you away to save you. And 26 years later, you saved my other daughter without even knowing she was your sister. The baby stirred in Elena's arms and Elena looked down at her, at this tiny person who was apparently her half-sister, and felt her entire world shatter and remake itself in the same moment. No, she said again, but it came out weak. Broken. But she could see it now. See it in Marco's eyes, the same dark eyes she saw every time she looked in a mirror. See it in the sharp angle of his jaw that matched her own. See it in the way he moved, careful and controlled, just like her. I'm sorry, Marco said, and he sounded like he was dying. Elena, I am so sorry. Thought I was protecting you. I thought if I cut you out of my life, if I made sure no one ever knew you existed, you'd be safe. You'd be free. His voice cracked. But I failed you. I sent you into a system that hurt you and I never looked back. Never checked. I convinced myself you were better off without me. Stop, Elena choked out. Just stop. I gave you away and I've regretted it every single day since. Marco took a step toward her, hands raised like he was approaching something wild. And then you walked into my life and did what I couldn't. You protected my daughter, your sister, with everything you had. You risked your life for family you didn't even know was yours. Tears streamed down Elena's face. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the truth, Marco said. And because I won't make the same mistake twice. He knelt again and this time his expression was raw. Vulnerable. Human. I know I have no right to ask. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please let me protect you now. Both of you. Let me be the father I should have been 26 years ago. Elena looked at the baby in her arms. At this tiny person who'd brought her face to face with a past she'd never known existed. And she made a choice. I need time, she said quietly. I can't process this right now. Take all the time you need, Marco said immediately. But take it here. Where you're safe. Where both of you are safe. He hesitated. Please. The words sounded foreign coming from him. Like he hadn't said it in years. Elena looked at Vincent, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Then she looked back at Marco, at this stranger who was apparently her father, and saw something in his eyes that she recognized. Fear. The same fear she'd felt every time a foster parent looked at her like she was a burden. The same fear that had kept her running her entire life. The fear of being unwanted. Okay, Elena whispered. Okay. Marco's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. He stood and turned to Vincent. Double the security. I want eyes on every entrance, every window. No one gets in or out without my personal approval. Already done, boss. Marco nodded, then looked back at Elena one more time. There's a bedroom through that door. Everything you need. Rest. And when you're ready, we'll talk. He walked toward the door, but Elena's voice stopped him. Marco. He turned. What's her name? Elena asked, looking down at the baby. Your daughter. She needs a name. Marco's expression softened. I was going to name her after her mother. Isabel. He paused. But that was before. Before I lost her. Before I found you. He met Elena's eyes. What do you think her name should be? Elena looked down at the sleeping infant. At this small person who'd changed everything. Grace, she said softly. Because that's what she gave me. A second chance. Marco smiled. A real smile, small and broken but genuine. Grace, he repeated. Grace Maria De Luca. It's perfect. He left and Elena was alone with her sister. With Grace. And for the first time in her life, Elena didn't feel alone. She felt like she belonged to something. Even if that something was dangerous, complicated, and possibly going to get her killed. Elena didn't sleep. She lay on the king-sized bed in the safe house bedroom. Grace nestled beside her in a makeshift barrier of pillows, and stared at the ceiling while her mind spun in endless circles. Marco De Luca was her father. The words didn't feel real. They sat in her brain like foreign objects, refusing to integrate, refusing to make sense. She'd spent 26 years believing she was nobody. That she'd been abandoned because she wasn't worth keeping. That she was alone in a world that didn't care whether she lived or died. No. Now she was a De Luca. Daughter of a mafia kingpin. Sister to a baby who people wanted dead. Part of a family that built empires on blood and fear. Elena turned her head and looked at Grace. The infant slept peacefully, tiny chest rising and falling, completely unaware of the chaos surrounding her existence. In the dim light filtering through the bulletproof windows, Grace looked almost ethereal. Innocent. What am I supposed to do with you? Elena whispered. Grace's eyes opened, those dark, knowing eyes, and fixed on Elena's face. And for a moment, Elena could have sworn the baby understood. Could have sworn Grace was asking the same question. What are we supposed to do with each other? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, Elena called, sitting up carefully. The door opened and Vincent entered carrying a tray. Thought you might be hungry. Haven't seen you eat since. He trailed off, setting the tray on the bedside table. Coffee. Toast. Scrambled eggs. Well, since everything. Elena's stomach growled traitorously. Thank you. Vincent lingered by the door, clearly wanting to say something. Elena waited. He's been sitting outside your door all night, Vincent finally said. Marco. He won't leave. Won't eat. Just sits there like he's afraid you'll disappear if he looks away. Elena's chest tightened. I don't know what he expects from me. Nothing, Vincent said. He expects nothing. Which is probably why he's terrified. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I've known Marco for 15 years. Worked for him since I was 23. And in all that time I've never seen him afraid. Not when we were ambushed by the triads. Not when the feds raided his casino. Not even when his wife. He stopped, shook his head. But you scare him. I'm nobody, Elena said automatically. You're his daughter, Vincent corrected gently. The one he gave away. The one he spent 26 years trying not to think about. And now you're here looking at him like he's a stranger. Which he is. But he's also your father. And that's killing him. Elena picked up the coffee, letting the warmth seep into her hands. Tell me about my mother. Vincent's expression shifted. Marco didn't tell you? He said she died in childbirth. That's all. Her name was Maria, Vincent said softly. Marco's first love. Before the empire. Before the power. They were kids, 17 maybe 18. Young and stupid and in love the way only teenagers can be. He paused. Maria's father was a cop. Straight as they come. When he found out his daughter was pregnant by a De Luca, he lost his mind. Threatened to kill Marco. To take Maria away. What happened? Marco tried to leave. Tried to walk away from his family, from the business, from everything. He was going to run away with Maria, raise you somewhere safe. Vincent's voice grew heavy. But the family wouldn't let him go. His father, your grandfather, made it very clear. Marco could leave, but there would be consequences. People he loved would die. Maria. Everyone. Elena's hands tightened on the mug. So he stayed. He stayed, Vincent confirmed. And Maria went into labor 2 weeks early. Complications. They rushed her to the hospital, but he shook his head. She bled out before they could save her. Marco held you for exactly 10 minutes. Then his father took you away and told him it was for the best. That a baby would make him weak. That you'd be used against him. So he gave me up. He was 18 years old, Elena. Devastated. Terrified. And his father convinced him that the only way to protect you was to erase you from his life completely. Vincent's eyes were sad. Marco made me promise years later to never tell him where you were. Never check on you. He said if he knew, he'd be tempted to interfere. And that would put you in danger. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. He really thought he was protecting me. He did. Vincent moved toward the door. Whether he was right or wrong, that's for you to decide. But I wanted you to know. He didn't abandon you because he didn't love you. He did it because he loved you too much to let you die in his world. He left, and Elena was alone again with Grace and her thoughts. Morning came with golden light and the sound of voices in the main room. Elena changed Grace, fed her, and took a long moment to just breathe before opening the bedroom door. The safe house had transformed overnight. What had been a sparse loft was now bustling with activity. Men in suits talking in low voices. Women, nurses, Elena realized, organizing medical supplies. Vincent coordinating everything from the center of the room like a general directing troops. And Marco standing by the windows looking out at the city. He turned when Elena entered and his eyes went straight to Grace. Something softened in his expression. Something vulnerable and human that made him look years younger. "How is she?" he asked. "Perfect," Elena said. "No signs of distress. She's eating well, sleeping well. She's..." Elena hesitated. "She's strong. Like you." Marco's jaw tightened. He moved closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "Hey, I..." It took Elena a moment to realize he was asking permission to hold his own daughter. She nodded and Marco reached out with surprising gentleness, taking Grace into his arms like she was made of glass. The baby stared up at him and Marco stared back, and Elena watched something break and rebuild in this dangerous man's face. "Hello, Grace," Marco whispered. "I'm your father. And I promise, I swear on everything I am, I will never let anyone hurt you again." Grace made a small sound and Marco smiled. Actually smiled. Elena felt something shift in her chest. This was real. All of it. This wasn't some elaborate con or fever dream. This was her father holding her sister, looking at his daughters like they were the only things in the world that mattered. "Marco," Elena said quietly, "we need to talk." He nodded, carefully passing Grace to one of the nurses who'd appeared at his elbow. "Take her to the nursery. Full medical workup. I want to know that she's completely healthy." The nurse nodded and disappeared with Grace. Marco turned to Elena. "Vincent. Clear the room." Within 30 seconds they were alone. Marco gestured to the couch and they both sat, awkward, careful like strangers at a job interview. Which Elena supposed they were. Strangers trying to figure out if they could be something more. "Ask me anything," Marco said. "No lies. No evasions. You deserve the truth." Elena had 1,000 questions. But only one mattered right now. Why is someone trying to kill Grace? Marco's expression hardened. "Because she's my weakness. My father used to say that family makes you vulnerable. That love is a weapon your enemies can use against you." He was right. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. 3 weeks ago when Isabel gave birth to Grace, I made a mistake. I told my inner circle about her. Showed them photos. I was happy. Proud. I forgot for just a moment that pride can get you killed in this world. What happened? My brother Antonio was part of that inner circle. My right hand. Or so I thought. Marco's voice went cold. Turns out he'd been working with the Bratva for months. Selling them information, access to my territory, everything. And when he saw Grace, he saw an opportunity. To sell her, Elena said, remembering what Vincent had told her. To trade her, Marco corrected. The Bratva wanted a foothold in my operations. Antonio wanted protection from me. He knew I'd eventually discover his betrayal, and a cut of the profits. Grace was the bargaining chip. He paused. But I found out. Intercepted the communications. And I confronted Antonio. You killed him. I did. No hesitation. No remorse. He was my brother and I loved him. But he betrayed me. He was willing to sell my daughter, his own niece, to men who would have used her, hurt her, killed her when she was no longer useful. So yes, I killed him. Elena should have been horrified. Should have recoiled from this admission of murder. But all she felt was a strange, cold understanding. And his wife, Isabel, she blames you. She should, Marco said. I took her husband. I destroyed her life. Of course she blames me. He looked at Elena. But what she doesn't know, what she refuses to believe, is that Antonio took Grace before I killed him. Hid her somewhere, planning to complete the trade with the Bratva even after his death. And when I couldn't find my daughter, when she just vanished. His voice broke. Elena waited. I thought she was dead, Marco whispered. I thought the Bratva had taken her and killed her to hurt me. I spent 3 days tearing this city apart looking for her. Offered $1 million reward. Tortured men who knew nothing. I was. He looked at Elena and his eyes were raw. I was becoming the monster everyone thinks I am. And then Vincent got a call from one of our watchers. Someone had found Grace. A waitress. At a diner in the middle of nowhere. The diner where Antonio left her, Elena realized. We think so. We think Antonio hid her there, planning to have the Bratva pick her up once the heat died down. But then I killed him and Grace was just left. Abandoned in a locked bathroom with nothing but her mother's coat and that pendant. Marco's hands clenched into fists. And you found her. You of all people. My daughter finding my other daughter. You think it means something, Elena said. I think it means everything. Marco turned to face her fully. Elena, I don't believe in coincidences. Not in my world. And the odds of you, specifically you, being the one to find Grace? To protect her when every other person in this city would have sold her to the highest bidder. He shook his head. That's not chance. That's fate. I don't believe in fate. Neither did I, Marco said. Until yesterday. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Elena asked the question that had been burning in her mind since last night. What happens now? The Bratva still wants Grace. Isabel wants revenge. Your own organization is falling apart. How do you protect her? How do you protect either of us? Marco's expression went cold. Calculating. I end it. All of it. The Bratva, Isabel, anyone who's even thought about hurting my family. I burn it all down and salt the earth. That's not a plan, Elena said. That's suicide. Maybe. Marco looked at her. But what would you do? If someone threatened Grace, what would you do? Elena didn't hesitate. Whatever it took. Exactly. Marco smiled grimly. You're more like me than you know. The words should have been an insult. But somehow they weren't. I want to help, Elena said suddenly. I want to. The windows exploded. Glass and bullets and chaos erupted all at once. Marco threw himself over Elena, driving her to the floor as automatic gunfire tore through the safe house. Screams. Shouts. The sound of men dying. Grace. Elena screamed, trying to crawl toward the nursery. Marco held her down, his body shielding hers, his voice in her ear. Vincent has her. He's safe. Stay down. The gunfire intensified. Elena heard Vincent shouting orders, heard Marco's men returning fire, heard the sound of a helicopter overhead. They found us, Marco said, his voice deadly calm. Someone told them where we were. Who? I'll find out. Marco pulled a gun from his jacket. Elena hadn't even known he was armed, and rose into a crouch. Stay here. Stay alive. I'll get Grace. Marco. But he was already moving, firing as he went, making his way toward the nursery with single-minded determination. Elena pressed herself against the overturned couch, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This was her life now. This was what it meant to be a DeLuca. Blood. Violence. Death. And somewhere in that nursery her baby sister was crying. Elena made a decision. She grabbed a fallen guard's gun. She'd never fired a weapon in her life, but how hard could it be? And ran after Marco. The nursery door was splintered, hanging off its hinges. Inside, the nurse lay motionless on the floor, blood pooling beneath her. Grace's crib was empty. No. Elena's scream tore from her throat. Marco appeared beside her, wild-eyed, covered in blood. Vincent. Here. Vincent's voice came from the bathroom. Elena and Marco rushed in to find him standing in the bathtub. Grace clutched against his chest, his gun trained on the door. Sniper took out the nurse. I grabbed Grace and locked us in. Are they gone? For now, Marco said. He took Grace from Vincent, checking her over frantically. The baby was screaming, terrified but unhurt. We need to move. No. This location is compromised. All locations are compromised, Vincent said grimly. Boss, someone in your inner circle is feeding them information. Real-time intelligence. They knew we were here within hours of our arrival. Marco's expression went cold as death. Then we don't trust anyone. Just us. Just family. He looked at Elena. And Elena understood. She wasn't just his daughter anymore. He was part of this. Part of the war. Part of the family. Whether she wanted to be or not. I have a place, Elena said suddenly. Somewhere no one knows about. Not on any records. It's not much, but... Where? Marco demanded. My friend Destiny's apartment. She's been helping me. But more importantly, she's not connected to your world. No one would think to look there. Marco and Vincent exchanged glances. It's a risk, Vincent said. Everything's a risk, Marco countered. But Elena's right. They're tracking our properties, our known associates, our safe locations. But a random apartment belonging to someone outside the organization. He nodded. They won't see it coming. One condition, Elena said. Destiny doesn't get hurt. Whatever happens, she stays safe. That's non-negotiable. Marco met her eyes. You have my word. On your mother's memory. It was the most solemn oath Elena had ever heard. Then let's go, she said. They left through the underground parking garage, moving in a convoy of 3 SUVs. Marco rode with Elena and Grace, his men surrounding them like a human shield. The city blurred past, morning traffic providing cover as they wove through streets. Elena called Destiny from a burner phone. Elena? Girl, where have you been? I've been worried sick. Des, I need your help. Big help. Life or death help. Pause. Then, what do you need? I need to bring some people to your place. Just for a day or two. Until we figure things out. How many people? Elena looked at Marco, who held up 3 fingers. 3. Me, the baby, and... Elena hesitated. And the baby's father. Another pause, longer this time. The DeLuca man. Yes. Elena, I told you. I know what you told me. But Des, he's not what I thought. And I'm not who I thought. And I really, really need you to trust me right now. Silence. Then Destiny sighed. You're going to get me killed. No, Elena said firmly. I'm going to keep you alive. I promise. Fine. But you're explaining everything when you get here. Everything. Deal. They hung up and Elena looked at Marco. She says yes. She sounds smart, Marco observed. She's the smartest person I know, Elena said. And the kindest. Which is rare in my world. In our world, Marco corrected gently. Elena didn't argue. Destiny met them at her door, eyes going wide when she saw the entourage. Marco had left most of his men in the vehicles, bringing only Vincent and 1 other guard inside. But even 3 armed men in suits made Destiny's small apartment feel crowded. So this is happening, Destiny said faintly. This is happening, Elena confirmed. She moved to Destiny and hugged her tight. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you. Yeah, well. You better not get me shot. But Destiny hugged her back, fierce and warm. Marco cleared his throat. Both women turned. Miss, he prompted. Destiny Williams, she supplied warily. Miss Williams, you're taking a significant risk helping us. I want you to know that I'm aware of that and I'm grateful. Marco's voice was formal, respectful. You'll be compensated for your trouble. And protected should anyone discover our presence here. I don't want your money, Destiny said coolly. Then what do you want? I want Elena safe. And that baby safe. And when this is over, I want all of you out of our building so the rest of us can go back to normal life. She crossed her arms. Can you do that? Marco smiled slightly. I like you, Miss Williams. You're honest. That's rare in my world. In our world, Destiny echoed, mimicking his earlier correction. Whether we like it or not, Elena pulled me into this when she showed up with that baby. So yeah, our world now. Something passed between them. A moment of understanding. Of respect. Marco nodded. Then we're allies. And I protect my allies. Good, Destiny said. As I protect mine too. And if you hurt Elena DeLuca money or not, I will find a way to make you pay. Vincent coughed, possibly hiding a laugh. Marco's smile widened. Noted. They settled in as best they could. Marco and Vincent set up a command center in Destiny's bedroom, tracking their enemies' movements on laptops and burner phones. The third guard stationed himself by the door. Destiny made coffee and sandwiches, muttering about running a bed and breakfast for the Mafia. And Elena sat on the couch with Grace, watching the tiny person who'd turned her life upside down. She's beautiful, Destiny said, settling beside her. She is. Elena traced Grace's tiny features with one finger. I found out something. Something impossible. More impossible than you accidentally kidnapping a mob boss's baby? Yeah. Elena took a breath. Marco's my father. My biological father. He gave me up when I was a baby to protect me. And now you're right back in the danger he tried to save you from, Destiny finished. Oh, Elena. I know. It's insane. All of it. Elena looked at her friend. But for the first time in my life I feel like I belong somewhere. Like I'm part of something. Even if that something is terrifying and violent and might get me killed. Destiny was quiet for a long moment. Then she took Elena's hand. Then I guess we better make sure you don't get killed. From the bedroom, Marco's voice rose suddenly. I don't care what it takes. Find the leak. And when you do, bring them to me alive. I want to look them in the eye before I end them. Elena shivered. Destiny squeezed her hand. Still feel like you belong? Elena looked down at Grace. At this tiny, perfect person who shared her blood. Who was her family in a way Elena had never experienced before. Yeah, Elena said softly. I do. Night fell. Marco emerged from the bedroom exhausted, running a hand through his hair. He found Elena still on the couch, Grace asleep in her arms. She's amazing with her, Destiny commented from the kitchen. Natural. Marco nodded. She takes after her mother. Maria was like that. Strong. He looked at Elena. Can we talk? Elena nodded, carefully passing Grace to Destiny. She followed Marco out onto the small balcony, barely big enough for two people, and stood beside him in the cold night air. I found the leak, Marco said without preamble. Vincent identified the source. One of my senior captains. A man I've known for 20 years. He's been feeding information to the Bratva since before Grace was born. Why? Money. Power. The usual reasons men betray their families. Marco's voice was hollow. I'm having him brought in now. By morning he'll be dead. Elena should have been horrified. But she wasn't. Good. Marco looked at her sharply. You mean that? He tried to get Grace killed. He told our enemies where we were. People died today because of him. Elena met her father's eyes. So yeah. I mean it. Something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. You really are my daughter, Marco said quietly. For better or worse, Elena agreed. They stood in silence looking out at the city. Then Marco spoke again, his voice softer. I thought I'd lost my chance. 26 years of wondering if you were okay. If you were happy. If you hated me for giving you away. And then you walked into my life and saved Grace, and I thought maybe I could fix this. Fix us. He turned to her. But I know I can't force that. Can't demand forgiveness. So I'm asking, is there any chance you could ever see me as your father? Not just the man whose blood you share, but actually, family. Elena looked at this man, this dangerous, powerful, broken man, and saw herself reflected back. The loneliness. The fear. The desperate need to protect the people you love. I don't know, she said honestly. But I'm willing to try. If you are. Marco's eyes filled with tears. I am. I swear, Elena, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the father you deserved. Then that's enough, Elena said. For now, that's enough. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he pulled her into a hug, careful, tentative, like he was afraid she'd break. Elena hugged him back. And for the first time since finding Grace in that bathroom, Elena felt something like hope. Even if that hope came wrapped in danger, violence, and the promise of more blood to come. The traitor's name was Viktor Kozlov. Elena learned this at 3 a.m. when shouting erupted from Destiny's bedroom. She jolted awake on the couch, instinctively reaching for Grace in the bassinet beside her. The baby slept on, undisturbed, but Elena's heart hammered as Marco's voice cut through the apartment like a blade. I want him in the warehouse by dawn. And Vincent? Make sure he knows exactly who's waiting for him. Elena stood, wrapping her cardigan tighter, and moved toward the bedroom. Vincent emerged before she could knock, his face grim. You don't want to see this, he said quietly. See what? Justice. He closed the door behind him. Marco's version of it, anyway. The traitor, Elena said. You found him. Vincent nodded. Viktor Kozlov. Russian ancestry, born in Brooklyn. Marco brought him into the family 15 years ago. Gave him territory, respect, wealth. And Viktor repaid that by selling us out to the Bratva. His jaw tightened. He's the one who told them about Grace. The one who gave them our safe house location. 5 of our men are dead because of him. Elena's hands clenched. What's going to happen to him? What happens to all traitors? Vincent's voice was flat. Marco will question him. Find out what else he sold, who else is involved. And then... He made a slicing gesture across his throat. Can I come? Vincent's eyes widened. Elena. Can I? She repeated, her voice hard. He tried to kill my sister. I want to see his face when he realizes he failed. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I'll ask Marco. But Elena? Once you cross this line, there's no going back. You can't unsee what happens in that warehouse. Can't unhear the sounds. It'll change you. Good, Elena said coldly. Maybe I need to change. Marco said yes. At 5 a.m. they left Grace with Destiny, who was half asleep but agreed immediately, holding the baby like a precious treasure. Vincent assigned 2 guards to the apartment with strict orders. If anything moved wrong, get Destiny and Grace out through the fire escape and disappear. Elena rode in the back of the SUV with Marco, the silence between them heavy with anticipation. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. They both knew what was coming. The warehouse was in Red Hook, isolated among shipping containers and abandoned buildings. Perfect for things you didn't want witnesses to see. Marco's men had already secured the perimeter. Elena counted at least a dozen guards as they pulled inside. Vincent led them through rusted metal doors into a cavernous space that smelled of oil and rust and something darker. Blood, maybe. Fear. In the center of the warehouse, under a single harsh spotlight, Viktor Kozlov hung by his wrists from a chain attached to a ceiling beam. He was maybe 50, thick-bodied and balding, his expensive suit torn and bloody. His face was a mess. Someone had already started the interrogation. When he saw Marco, true terror flooded his features. Marco, please. His voice was hoarse. I can explain. Explain. Marco's voice was conversational, almost friendly. He walked slowly toward Viktor, hands in his pockets. You're going to explain how you sold information about my daughter to the people who wanted her dead? How you told them where we were hiding? How 5 of my men, good men, loyal men, died because of you? They threatened my family. Viktor's words tumbled out desperately. They said they'd kill my wife, my children. So you chose to let them kill mine instead. Marco stopped in front of Viktor, and his expression was colder than Elena had ever seen. Interesting choice, Viktor. Tell me, if someone threatened my family, should I throw you to the wolves to save them? Is that how loyalty works now? I had no choice. You always have a choice. Marco turned and gestured to Elena. Come here. Elena's stomach clenched, but she moved forward, forcing her legs to work. She stopped beside Marco and he put a hand on her shoulder. Viktor, this is my daughter. Elena. Marco's voice was soft. Dangerous. The one I gave away 26 years ago to protect her from men exactly like you. The one who's been alone her entire life because I thought keeping her separate from my world would keep her safe. And then she found Grace. Protected her. Brought her back to me. She did what you couldn't. Stayed loyal even when it was hard. Viktor's eyes went to Elena and something flickered across his face. Recognition? Shock? You, he breathed. You're the waitress. The one from the diner. That's right, Elena said, surprised her voice came out steady. I'm the one who found Grace when your Bratva friends left her to die. I'm the one who kept her alive while you were telling them where to find us. I didn't know, Victor said desperately. I didn't know you were Marco's. Would it have mattered? Elena took a step closer. Would you have cared about my life if I was just some random woman who got in your way? Silence. That's what I thought, Elena said quietly. Marco squeezed her shoulder, then released her. Vincent. Start with his hands. Vincent moved forward with a pair of bolt cutters. Wait. Victor's scream echoed through the warehouse. Wait please. I'll tell you everything. I'll give you names, locations, everything the Bratva is planning. Marco held up a hand. Vincent stopped. Talk, Marco commanded. And Victor did. The words poured out in a desperate flood. Names of other informants. Details about Bratva operations in New York. Plans to move against Marco's territory. And finally, the piece of information that made Marco's expression turn murderous. They have someone inside the hospital, Victor gasped. Someone who gave them Isabel's medical records. They know about the complications. They know she's weak. Elena's blood ran cold. What complications? Marco's hand clenched into a fist. Isabel almost died giving birth to Grace. Internal bleeding. She's been in a private facility recovering. Only a handful of people knew where she was. He looked at Victor. Who? I don't know the name. Just that they're a doctor. Someone on your payroll. Victor was crying now. Marco, please. I've told you everything. My family. Your family will be safe, Marco said. I'm not a monster, Victor. I don't punish children for their father's sins. Your wife and kids will be relocated. New names, new lives far from here. They'll never know what you did. Relief flooded Victor's face. Thank you. Thank you. But you, Marco continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, you don't get to walk away from this. He pulled a gun from his jacket. Elena's breath caught. Don't look away, Marco said to her. This is our world now. This is what we do to protect our family. Elena forced herself to watch. Forced herself to see Victor's face. The fear, the regret, the desperate hope dying in his eyes. Marco pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. Victor's body jerked once, then went still, hanging from the chain like a broken puppet. Elena didn't scream. Didn't flinch. She just stood there staring at the body, feeling something inside her shift and harden. Get rid of him, Marco said to his men. Make it clean. And find me that doctor. He turned to Elena, his expression unreadable. You okay? Elena looked at him. At this man who was her father. Who just killed someone in front of her without hesitation. Yeah, she said. I am. And the terrifying thing was she meant it. They returned to Destiny's apartment as dawn broke over the city. Grace was awake and fussy, and Elena took her gratefully, needing to hold something pure and innocent after what she'd just witnessed. Destiny took one look at Elena's face and didn't ask questions. Just made coffee and toast and sat beside her on the couch in silent support. Marco disappeared into the bedroom with Vincent, making calls, coordinating his response to Victor's information. Elena could hear the urgency in his voice. They were running out of time. You saw something bad, Destiny said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yeah. And you're okay with it. Elena looked at her friend. Does that make me a monster? No, Destiny said firmly. It makes you someone who's protecting her family. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Destiny took Elena's hand. Monsters hurt people for fun. For power. For no reason. You're hurting people who tried to kill a baby. Who betrayed your father. Who would have killed you without a second thought. That's not the same thing. Elena wanted to believe her. Wanted to think she was still a good person despite what she'd just watched. Despite the fact that she hadn't felt anything when Victor died except a cold sense of satisfaction. I'm changing, Elena whispered. Into something I don't recognize. You're not changing, Destiny corrected. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. You just didn't know it until now. Before Elena could respond, Marco emerged from the bedroom, his face grave. We have a problem. Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Isabel's missing. Marco's voice was tight. I just called the facility where she was recovering. They said she checked herself out last night against medical advice. No one knows where she went. She's going after Grace, Vincent said, appearing behind Marco. She blames you for Antonio's death. Blames Grace for existing. She's unstable, boss. Dangerous. She's also Grace's mother, Marco said quietly. And she's dying. Elena stood still, holding Grace. What? The complications from the birth. They caused internal damage that can't be fully repaired. Isabel has maybe 6 months. A year if she's lucky and follows treatment. Marco's expression was pained. She knows. And she's decided that if she's going to die, she's taking Grace with her. Over my dead body, Elena said flatly. Marco looked at her and something passed between them. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Elena, Isabel knows about you now. Victor's information would have reached the Bratva and they'll have told her. She knows you're my daughter. She knows you've been protecting Grace. So you're a target now. Not just from the Bratva but from Isabel too. She'll see you as the reason Grace exists. The reason her husband died. Marco's hands clenched. She'll come for both of you. Then let her come, Elena said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not running. If she wants Grace, she'll have to go through me. Elena. No. Elena cut him off. You spent 26 years trying to protect me by keeping me away from your world. And where did that get me? Alone. Broke. Miserable. Living a half-life because I didn't know who I really was. She looked down at Grace. But now I know. I'm a DeLuca. I'm your daughter. And I'm her sister. And that means something. Marco's eyes filled with pride and fear in equal measure. It means you're in danger. Then we face it together, Elena said. All of us. As a family. Destiny cleared her throat. Hate to interrupt this touching moment, but can we talk about the fact that a dying mob wife and the Russian mafia are both coming to kill Elena and the baby? Because I feel like we need a better plan than bring it on. Despite everything, Marco smiled. Miss Williams, you're absolutely right. Vincent, what are our options? Vincent pulled out his phone, scrolling through information. We could move again. I have 3 secure locations that only I know about. No one else, not even the rest of the family. They found us in 6 hours last time, Marco said. We don't have that kind of time now. What else? We could go public, Vincent suggested. Release Grace's existence to the press. Once the media knows about her, the Bratva can't move openly. They're trying to avoid attention from the feds right now. A high-profile kidnapping would bring too much heat. And paint an even bigger target on Grace's back, Marco countered. Every enemy I have would know exactly what to hit to hurt me most. Then we end it, Elena said. All eyes turned to her. We stop running and we finish this. Find Isabel. Find the Bratva cell that's hunting us. And we handle it. Handle it how? Destiny asked carefully. Elena met Marco's eyes. However we have to. Marco studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Then we go on the offensive. Vincent, I want locations on every Bratva operation in the city. Every safe house, every front business, every known associate. We hit them all simultaneously. Hard enough that they can't coordinate a response. That's a war, boss, Vincent said quietly. The kind that brings attention. Police. Feds. Media. I don't care. Marco's voice was cold. They threaten my daughters. Both of them. So yes, we go to war. And we don't stop until everyone who's tried to hurt my family is dead or running. What about me? Elena asked. What's my role in this? You stay here, Marco said immediately. You stay hidden with Grace and... No. Elena's voice was firm. I'm not hiding. I'm not letting you fight my battles while I sit on the sidelines. Elena, you're not trained for. Then train me, she interrupted. You've got, 12 hours until everything goes down? Teach me enough to defend myself. To defend Grace if someone gets through. Marco looked torn. If something happens to you. Then something happens, Elena said. But it won't be because I was helpless. It won't be because I couldn't protect my sister when she needed me. She softened slightly. Dad. Please. Let me do this. The word, Dad, hit Marco like a physical blow. Elena saw him waver, saw the father in him warring with the crime boss. Finally he nodded. But you stay with me. Every second. You don't leave my sight. Deal. I'm going to regret this, Destiny muttered. Probably, Elena agreed. She passed Grace to Destiny, then looked at Marco. So, where do we start? The next 6 hours were a blur. Vincent taught Elena the basics of firearms: how to load, aim, fire. How to clear a jam. How to make every shot count. She was a terrible shot at first, but something clicked around the 100th round. Muscle memory. Instinct. Whatever it was, by hour 4 she was consistently hitting targets. Marco taught her about close combat. How to use an opponent's weight against them. Where to strike to disable quickly. How to think 3 moves ahead. You're small, Marco said as they sparred in Destiny's living room, furniture pushed against the walls. That's an advantage. People underestimate you. Use that. Elena ducked under his arm and drove her elbow into his ribs. Gently, controlled, but the movement was there. Like that? She asked. Marco smiled. Exactly like that. By noon, Elena was exhausted but capable. Not an expert. Not even close. But no longer helpless. And that was enough. At 2 p.m. Marco's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went white. When? Are you certain? Pause. Understood. We're coming now. He hung up and looked at Elena. That was the hospital. Isabel just walked into the maternity ward asking about Grace. She has a gun. Elena's blood turned to ice. But Grace is here. She doesn't know that. She thinks we moved her to a secure facility. Marco was already moving, grabbing his jacket. But when she realizes Grace isn't there, she'll tear the city apart looking for her. We need to get to her first. Boss, Vincent said urgently, this could be a trap. What if the Bratva is using Isabel to draw you out? Then it's working, Marco said. I'm not letting my wife hurt innocent people because she's grieving and dying and angry. He looked at Elena. Stay here. Guard Grace. Vincent and I will handle. No. Elena grabbed her own jacket. If Isabel's at the hospital, then this is the time to move. Hit the Bratva while they're waiting for you. She's the distraction. Don't fall for it. Marco stared at her. Then slowly he smiled. You're right. Vincent, change of plans. We split up. I'll take a team to the hospital, contain Isabel. You take Elena and the rest of our forces and hit the Bratva's main operation. The warehouse on Pier 17. That's where their lieutenant is coordinating everything. Boss, I should be with you. And I need you with Elena, Marco said firmly. She's my daughter, Vincent. My blood. You protect her the way you'd protect me. Understood. Vincent hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Marco turned to Elena and pulled her into a fierce hug. You come back alive. That's an order. You too, Elena said into his shoulder. We just found each other. I'm not losing you now. You won't. He pulled back, holding her face in his hands. I promise you, Elena. When this is over, we're going to have a life. A real family. All of us together. I'm holding you to that, Elena said. Marco kissed her forehead, then turned to Destiny. Miss Williams, you're the most important person in this operation. You keep Grace safe. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you stay in this apartment with those guards and you protect my daughter. Can you do that? Destiny, holding Grace, nodded. I won't let anything happen to her. I swear. Thank you. Marco's voice was thick with emotion. All of you. Thank you for protecting my family when I couldn't. Then he was gone, taking half the guards with him, leaving Vincent, Elena, and 3 other men to carry out the attack on the Bratva. Elena looked at Vincent. You really think we can do this? Honestly. Vincent checked his gun. No. But we're going to try anyway. That's what family does. Elena nodded, trying to ignore the terror crawling up her spine. She was about to walk into a war zone. About to face trained killers. About to test everything she'd learned in the last 6 hours. He might not survive. But Grace would. Marco would. Destiny would. And if Elena died protecting them, that was a price she was willing to pay. Let's go end this, she said. They headed for the door. Behind them, Destiny called out, Elena? Elena turned. Come back, Destiny said simply. Your sister needs you. Elena smiled. I will. I promise. It was a promise she desperately hoped she could keep. The warehouse on Pier 17 was massive. 3 stories of concrete and steel sitting on the waterfront like a fortress. Vincent's intelligence said there were at least 20 Bratva soldiers inside, plus their lieutenant Dmitry Volkov. Elena, Vincent, and their 3 men watched from across the street, hidden in shadows. "This is insane," one of the guards muttered. 5 of us against 20 of them? 6, Elena corrected. "I count 2. The guard looked at her skeptically. "No offense, but you were a waitress yesterday." "Yesterday I was a lot of things," Elena said. "Today I'm a DeLuca. So either get on board or get out of my way." The guard shut up. Vincent smiled slightly. "Marco's daughter all right. Same fire." He turned to the team. "Here's the play. We go in quiet through the south entrance. Take out guards silently as we move. Our goal is Dmitry. We get him, we cut the head off the snake. The rest of his men will scatter without leadership." "And if they don't?" Elena asked. "Then we fight our way out." Vincent's expression was grim. "And hope we're lucky." They moved. The south entrance was guarded by 2 men smoking cigarettes. Vincent's team took them down in seconds. Silent, efficient, brutal. Elena tried not to look at the bodies as they stepped over them. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Perfect for ambushes. Perfect for getting lost. They moved like ghosts, following Vincent's lead. 2 more guards went down. Then 3 more. Each kill brought them closer to the center of the warehouse, where Dmitry supposedly had his office. Then Elena heard voices. She grabbed Vincent's arm, pointing. Through a gap in the containers, she could see a group of men gathered around a table, studying something. Maps. Plans. And in the center, a tall man with a scar running down his face. Dmitry Volkov. "That's him," Vincent whispered. "They. On my count." A phone rang. One of the Bratva soldiers answered it. His face went pale. "Dada, I understand." He hung up and turned to Dmitry. "It's the hospital. DeLuca's not coming. He sent his men to secure his wife, but he's not there. He knows it's a trap." Dmitry cursed in Russian. "Then where?" "He's here," Vincent said, stepping out of the shadows with his gun raised. "Well, not him exactly. But close enough." 20 guns swung toward them. Elena's heart stopped. "You're outnumbered," Dmitry said calmly. "Outgunned. Surrender now and I'll make your deaths quick." "Counter-proposal," Vincent said. "You tell us everything you know about the attacks on the DeLuca family and we let some of you live." Dmitry laughed. "Brave. Stupid but brave." He looked at Elena. "And you brought a girl. How desperate is DeLuca getting?" "Desperate enough," Elena said, raising her own gun. Her hands shook but her voice was steady. "And I'm not just any girl. I'm his daughter." The words rang out through the warehouse. Dmitry's smile faded. "You're lying." "Am I?" Elena took a step forward, ignoring Vincent's hiss of warning. "Elena Maria DeLuca. Born March 15, 1999. Given away at 8 months old to protect me from men exactly like you. But I'm back now. And I'm done hiding." "Then you're a fool," Dmitry said. "You should have stayed hidden. Should have stayed nobody." "Maybe," Elena agreed. "But I found Grace. I protected her when you were trying to kill her. And now I'm here to make sure you never threaten my family again." "Your family." Dmitry's expression twisted. "Your family are monsters. Killers. Criminals. Marco DeLuca has more blood on his hands than you can imagine. And you're proud to be his daughter." "I don't care what he's done," Elena said. "I care what he's doing now. He's protecting his children. Both of us. And that's more than anyone's ever done for me before." Dmitry studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded to his men. "Kill them. All of them." The warehouse exploded into gunfire. Elena dropped behind a container as bullets tore through the air where she'd been standing. Vincent was beside her, returning fire, shouting orders to their men. "Stay down," he yelled at Elena. "Cover the east side." But Elena wasn't listening. She was watching the Bratva soldiers advancing, methodically cutting off their escape routes. They were trapped. Outnumbered. They were going to die here. Unless. Elena saw it. A stack of industrial barrels near Dmitry's position. Marked with hazard symbols. Flammable. She made a choice. "Vincent," she shouted. "The barrels. Shoot the barrels." Vincent's eyes went wide. "That'll bring the whole place down." Then we better run fast. Elena raised her gun, aimed and fired. The first barrel exploded in a bloom of fire and force. The second, the third. The warehouse became an inferno in seconds, flames racing along spilled chemicals, consuming containers and equipment and men who weren't fast enough to run. Go! Vincent screamed, grabbing Elena's arm and hauling her toward the exit. They ran through smoke and fire and screaming. Behind them, the warehouse was collapsing, the entire structure groaning and buckling. They burst out into the sunlight just as the roof caved in. Elena fell to her knees, coughing, her lungs burning. Vincent was beside her, checking her for injuries, shouting for their men. 2 of them made it out. The third didn't. And inside the warehouse, buried under tons of burning rubble, Dmitry Volkov and his entire operation were gone. Elena had just killed 20 men. She should have felt horror. Guilt. Something. Instead she just felt numb. Is it over? She asked Vincent hoarsely. The Bratva? Yes. That was their entire New York cell. Vincent looked at the burning warehouse, his expression unreadable. You just wiped them out, Elena. All of them. Good, Elena said. Vincent helped her to her feet. We need to get back. Make sure Marco. His phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his face went pale. No. No, when? How long ago? Pause. We're coming. Now. He hung up and looked at Elena with eyes full of dread. It's the apartment, he said. Someone got inside. The guards are dead. And Destiny. Grace, Elena whispered. Where's Grace? Gone, Vincent said. Isabel has her. Elena didn't remember the drive back to the apartment. One moment she was standing outside the burning warehouse, Vincent's words echoing in her mind. Isabel has her. And the next she was running up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, her lungs screaming, her vision tunneling. The apartment door hung open, splintered where someone had kicked it in. Inside was carnage. The 2 guards Marco had left behind were dead. One slumped against the wall with a bullet hole in his forehead. The other sprawled in the kitchen, his throat cut. Blood pooled on Destiny's cheerful yellow linoleum, dark and spreading. And in the center of the living room, Destiny sat on the floor, clutching her side, her face pale and slick with sweat. Des. Elena crashed to her knees beside her friend, hands hovering, afraid to touch her. Oh God, Des, no. I'm okay, Destiny gasped, but blood seeped between her fingers. Stabbed, not shot. Olive. But Elena. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I tried. I swear I tried to stop her. Where? Elena's voice was barely human. Where did she take Grace? I don't know. He came in through the fire escape. Had the code to bypass the guard somehow. She knew exactly where to go. Destiny's breathing was labored. She looked wrong, Elena. Sick. Dying. And so angry. She said she was taking Grace somewhere you'd never find them. Somewhere Grace would be safe from monsters like Marco. Vincent was already on his phone calling for a medical team for backup for Marco. Elena barely heard him. She was staring at the empty bassinet, at the pink blanket Grace had been wrapped in, now lying discarded on the floor. Her sister was gone. Taken by a dying woman who blamed an innocent baby for her husband's death. Something inside Elena cracked open. Something dark and primal and absolutely merciless. I'm going to find her, Elena said quietly. And I'm going to kill Isabel. I don't care if she's Grace's mother. I don't care if she's dying. She took my sister. And she's going to pay. Elena, Destiny reached for her hand. You can't. Watch me. The EMTs arrived within minutes. Marco's people, not city ambulances. They swarmed Destiny, assessing the wound, preparing her for transport. One of them tried to check Elena, but she shoved him away. I'm fine. Help her. Vincent pulled Elena aside, his expression grim. Marco's on his way. He secured Isabel at the hospital. She'd set up a distraction, hired someone to pretend to be her. By the time he realized it was a decoy, she was already here. How did she know where we were? Elena demanded. This apartment wasn't connected to Marco. It wasn't in any system. How did she find us? Vincent's jaw tightened. We think Viktor Kozlov told someone before he died. Maybe even the Bratva. And they sold the information to Isabel before we hit their warehouse. So she's been planning this, Elena said. While we were busy fighting the Bratva, she was coming for Grace. It looks that way. Elena's hands clenched into fists. Then we stop being reactive. We stop waiting for them to make moves. We find Isabel and we end this. Tonight. Elena, she could be anywhere. No. Elena's mind was racing, putting pieces together. She's dying. She doesn't have much time. She won't go far because she can't. She needs medical equipment, oxygen, pain management. And she'll want somewhere that feels safe. Somewhere that means something to her. Vincent's eyes widened. Somewhere connected to Antonio. Exactly. Elena turned to face him. Where did Antonio and Isabel live? Where did they spend time together? Where would she go to feel close to him one last time? Vincent was already pulling up information on his phone. They had a house in Westchester. But Marco seized that after Antonio's death. She also had a family estate upstate, but that's 3 hours away. If she's as sick as Destiny said, she wouldn't make that drive. What about Antonio? Elena pressed. Did he have any property? Anywhere personal? Vincent scrolled through records. Antonio owned a cabin. In the Catskills. Bought it 5 years ago under a shell company. Marco didn't even know about it until after Antonio died. It was his. Vincent looked up. It was his escape plan. If things ever went south with the family, that's where he was going to run. That's where she is, Elena said with absolute certainty. That's where she took Grace. How can you be sure? Because that's where I'd go. Somewhere that belongs to the person I lost. Somewhere I could pretend even for a moment that they're still alive. Elena's voice was hollow. She's going there to die with Grace. To take them both out of this world together. To make Marco suffer the way she's suffered. Vincent stared at her. You understand her. I understand loss, Elena said. And grief. And the kind of anger that makes you want to burn the world down. She met his eyes. But I also understand that Grace is innocent. And I won't let Isabel punish a baby for what Marco did. The door burst open. Marco strode in, his face a mask of controlled fury. He took in the scene. The bodies, Destiny being loaded onto a stretcher, the empty bassinet, and something fractured in his expression. Where? He demanded, his voice dangerous and low. We think we know, Vincent said. Antonio's cabin. In the Catskills. Marco nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then that's where we're going. Get every available man. Full tactical gear. Helicopters if we need them. I want. No, Elena interrupted. Marco turned to her, surprised. What? Not an army, Elena said. Just us. You, me, Vincent. Maybe 2 others. That's it. Elena, Isabel is unstable and armed. We need her to not panic and hurt Grace, Elena cut in. If she sees a small army coming, she'll know it's over. She'll do something desperate. But if it's just a few people, if we come in quiet, we might be able to talk her down. I'm not talking to the woman who kidnapped my daughter, Marco said coldly. I'm putting a bullet in her head. She's Grace's mother. Elena's voice rose. And yes, she's done terrible things. Yes, she deserves to pay. But Marco. Elena softened slightly. Grace will grow up knowing that you killed her mother. Is that really what you want? Is that the legacy you want to leave her? Marco's expression twisted with conflicting emotions. She took my daughter. Our daughter. I know. Elena moved closer. And we're going to get Grace back. But let me try to reach Isabel first. Woman to woman. Mother to sister. Let me try to make her see that hurting Grace won't bring Antonio back. That killing an innocent baby won't ease her pain. And if she won't listen? Elena's voice went cold. Then I'll do what needs to be done. But let me try first. Please. Marco looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You have one chance. One conversation. But if she threatens Grace, if she even looks at our daughter wrong. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Understood, Elena said. Vincent stepped forward. I'll arrange transport. We can be at the cabin in 90 minutes. Make it 60, Marco said. Every second Grace is with Isabel is a second too long. They took a helicopter. Elena had never been in one before, and under different circumstances she might have been terrified. But now, strapped into the seat with Marco beside her and Vincent across from them, she felt nothing but grim determination. Below them the city gave way to suburbs, then forests, then mountains. The Catskills rose like jagged teeth against the darkening sky, all shadow and stone. Marco had been silent since they left, staring out the window, his jaw tight. Finally he spoke. I should have seen this coming. Elena looked at him. You couldn't have known. I should have, Marco insisted. I knew Isabel was unstable. Knew she blamed me. Blamed Grace. I should have had someone watching her every second she was in that hospital. Then she would have found another way, Elena said. People like Isabel. People with nothing left to lose. They're the most dangerous because they don't care about consequences. You couldn't have stopped her. You sound very sure of that. I am. Elena paused. As I was almost her. When I was 16, I aged out of my last foster home. Got kicked to the street with nothing. No money, no family, no future. And for a while I thought about just ending it. Walking into traffic or swallowing pills or jumping off a bridge. Because what was the point? Nobody cared if I lived or died. Marco turned to her, his expression stricken. Elena. But I didn't, Elena continued. I chose to keep going. To survive even when it was hard. Even when I was alone and scared and so angry at the world I could barely breathe. I chose life. She met his eyes. Isabel's choosing death. For herself and for Grace. And I need to make her understand that Grace deserves better. Deserves the choice I got. What if she doesn't care? Marco asked quietly. Then we take that choice away from her, Elena said simply. The helicopter began its descent. Antonio's cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. It was small, rustic, with smoke rising from the chimney and a single light visible in the window. A car was parked outside, Isabel's, based on the plates Vincent had pulled up. They landed a quarter-mile away to avoid alerting her. Marco's 2 additional men, both ex-military, silent and lethal, secured the perimeter while Marco, Elena and Vincent approached on foot. The night was cold and quiet, the only sounds their breathing and the crunch of frost beneath their boots. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, each beat seeming impossibly loud. They stopped at the edge of the clearing. She's in there, Marco whispered, checking his weapon. Grace is in there. Remember the plan, Elena said. I go in first. Alone. You stay here unless something goes wrong. Define wrong, Vincent muttered. Gunshots. Screaming. Anything that sounds like Grace is in immediate danger. Elena looked at Marco. Can you do that? Can you trust me? Marco's hand found hers in the darkness. Squeezed. I can. But Elena, if something happens to you. It won't, she said with more confidence than she felt. I'm a DeLuca, remember? We're survivors. She pulled away before Marco could stop her and walked toward the cabin. Each step felt like crossing into enemy territory. Each breath burned in her lungs. By the time she reached the door, Elena's entire body was vibrating with tension. She knocked. Silence. Then, go away, Marco. I know you're out there. Isabel's voice was hoarse, strained. Sick. It's not Marco, Elena called back. It's Elena. Can I come in? A long pause. Alone. Alone. The door cracked open. Elena stepped inside. The cabin was warm, cozy even, with a fire crackling in the stone fireplace and comfortable furniture arranged around it. It looked like a place where people might have been happy once. Isabel stood near the fire and Elena's breath caught. The woman looked like death personified. She'd lost weight since Elena had seen her at the bar, her skin gray and waxy, her eyes sunken. She wore a thick sweater and held a gun in one hand. And in the other arm she held Grace. The baby was awake, making small sounds, seemingly unharmed. You shouldn't have come, Isabel said. This doesn't concern you. That's my sister you're holding, Elena said quietly. So yes, it concerns me. Isabel's expression twisted. Your sister. Marco's other daughter. The one he gave away to protect. While Grace. She looked down at the baby. Grace is the one who destroyed my life. The one who cost me my husband. Grace is a baby, Elena said, keeping her voice calm. She didn't choose to be born. Didn't choose her father. He's innocent, Isabel. Punishing her won't bring Antonio back. I know, Isabel said, and tears spilled down her cheeks. I know she's innocent. I know none of this is her fault. But she exists and Antonio doesn't, and every time I look at her I see him dead on the floor with Marco's bullet in his head. Elena took a careful step forward. I understand. I do. You loved Antonio. He was your world. And Marco took him from you. That's not fair. That's not right. And you have every reason to be angry. Don't patronize me, Isabel snapped. I'm not, Elena said. I'm telling you that I understand loss. I understand rage. I spent my whole life angry at a father who gave me away. Angry at a world that didn't want me. Angry at everyone who had something I didn't. She took another step. But Isabel, killing Grace won't ease that anger. It'll just create more. More pain, more loss, more innocent people suffering for choices they didn't make. She's better off dead, Isabel whispered. Better off than growing up in Marco's world. Better off than becoming what he is. Maybe, Elena conceded. Or maybe she becomes something different. Something better. Maybe she grows up and changes the family from the inside. Turns the DeLuca name into something other than blood and fear. Elena's voice grew passionate. But she can't do any of that if you kill her tonight. Isabel looked at Grace, her expression crumbling. I can't let her go. If I do, what do I have left? What's the point of any of this? The point is that you get to choose, Elena said gently. Antonio made his choice. He chose to betray Marco to try to sell Grace to the Bratva. That was his decision and he paid for it. But you don't have to make the same choice. You can choose to let Grace live. To give her the chance you never had. Why would I do that? Isabel asked, her voice breaking. Why would I help Marco's daughter after everything he's taken from me? Because she's also your daughter, Elena said. And because somewhere deep down you know that Antonio would want you to protect her. Not hurt her. He loved Grace. That's why he took her from Marco, to keep her safe. Not to sell her. To save her. Isabel's head snapped up. How did you? Because I finally understand, Elena said. Antonio wasn't a traitor. He was a father trying to protect his niece from a war he saw coming. He took Grace because he knew Marco's enemies would use her as a weapon. And yes, maybe he was planning to run with her to hide her somewhere safe. But that's not betrayal. That's love. Tears streamed down Isabel's face. Marco killed him anyway. Marco killed a man he thought had betrayed him, Elena corrected softly. And maybe he was wrong. Maybe if he'd known the truth, things would have been different. But Isabel, you can't change the past. You can only decide what happens next. And right now you're holding a baby girl who needs her mother. Who deserves a chance at life. Are you really going to take that from her? Isabel looked down at Grace. The baby stared back, dark eyes wide and trusting. I'm dying, Isabel whispered. 6 months. Maybe less. And when I'm gone she'll have no one. Just Marco and his world of violence and blood. She'll have me, Elena said firmly. I'll protect her. I'll make sure she knows about Antonio. About you. About the people who loved her before things went wrong. I'll make sure she grows up knowing that her mother loved her even when it was hard. Even when the world was ending. Isabel's face crumpled. The gun slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. I don't want to die hating her, Isabel sobbed. I don't want my last act to be murder. Then don't, Elena said. She crossed the remaining distance and gently reached for Grace. Give her to me. Let me take her home. And you get to spend your last months knowing you did the right thing. Knowing you chose love over hate. Life over death. For a moment Isabel held on. Then slowly she released Grace into Elena's arms. The baby settled against Elena's chest with a small sigh, as if she'd always belonged there. Isabel collapsed into a chair, her body shaking with sobs. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. For all of it. The door burst open. Marco rushed in, gun raised, Vincent right behind him. But Elena held up a hand. It's okay, she said. It's over. Everyone's okay. Marco's eyes went to Grace, then to Isabel, then back to Elena. Understanding dawned. He lowered his gun. Elena walked to him and carefully transferred Grace into his arms. Marco held his daughter like she was made of glass, his eyes closed, his face a portrait of relief and grief and overwhelming love. Thank you, he whispered to Elena. Thank you for bringing her back. She's family, Elena said simply. That's what we do. She turned back to Isabel, who sat hunched and broken in the chair. Marco, Isabel needs medical care. And she needs to spend time with Grace. The time she has left. Marco's expression hardened. After everything she's done. She's Grace's mother, Elena said firmly. And she's dying. Please, let her have this. Let Grace know her mother before it's too late. Marco looked at Isabel, this woman who'd tried to kill his daughter, who'd caused so much pain, and Elena watched him war with himself. The crime boss who showed no mercy versus the father who understood loss. Finally he nodded. Supervised visits. Medical facility of my choosing. And if she tries anything. She won't, Elena said. She knelt beside Isabel. Will you? Isabel looked up, her face wet with tears. No. I swear. I just want to know her. Before I go. I just want her to know I loved her. Then that's what will happen, Elena said. Vincent made the call. Within minutes, a medical team arrived to transport Isabel to a private facility. As they led her out, she stopped beside Marco. He was trying to protect her, Isabel said quietly. Antonio. He wasn't selling her to the Bratva. He was hiding her from them. From you. From everyone who wanted to use her as a weapon. She looked at Grace in Marco's arms. He loved her. And he died believing he was saving her. Marco's jaw tightened. I know. Do you? Isabel asked. Or will you spend the rest of your life thinking you killed a traitor when really you killed a father doing what fathers do, protecting their children? She walked out, leaving Marco standing in the doorway with that question hanging in the air. Elena took his hand. She's right, you know. About Antonio. I know, Marco said again, but this time his voice broke. I know. And I'll have to live with that. But Elena, you saved Grace tonight. You saved Isabel from herself. You did what I couldn't, you showed mercy. I did what you taught me, Elena corrected. I protected family. No matter what. Marco looked at her and pride shone in his eyes. You're going to be an incredible sister. An incredible DeLuca. I'm going to try, Elena said. They stood there for a moment, father and daughter and baby sister, under the stars in the mountains where so many terrible things had almost happened. But didn't. Because family fought for each other. Because mercy mattered. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you could do was choose forgiveness over revenge. Elena looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in Marco's arms, and made a silent promise. She would protect this child. Would teach her to be strong and kind and brave. Would make sure she knew love before she knew violence. Would give her the childhood Elena never had. Let's go home, Elena said. And for the first time in her life, when she said that word, home, she actually meant it. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in front of a mirror in a room she still couldn't quite believe was hers. The penthouse apartment overlooked Central Park from the 42nd floor. All floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, and furniture that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. Marco had insisted she move in with him and Grace after the cabin. For safety, he'd said. For family, Elena suspected. She was still getting used to it. The space. The luxury. The fact that she could open the refrigerator and find actual food instead of condiments and hope. But mostly she was getting used to the woman staring back at her in the mirror. 3 weeks ago, Elena Cruz had been nobody. A waitress barely surviving, alone in a world that didn't care if she lived or died. Now Elena DeLuca was somebody. Daughter of Marco DeLuca. Sister to Grace. Heir to an empire built on blood and power. The woman in the mirror looked different. Stood different. Her eyes held something they hadn't before. Purpose. Belonging. Strength. You ready? Destiny's voice came from the doorway. Elena turned. Her friend had recovered well from the stabbing. Marco's doctors had ensured that, and had agreed to move into a guest room in the penthouse. Partly for safety. Partly because she and Elena had become more than friends. They were sisters now, bound by everything they'd survived together. Ready as I'll ever be, Elena said. She was wearing a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy. Today was important. Today would determine everything. You look good, Destiny said. Confident. Like you belong. Do I? Elena asked. Belong, I mean. Girl, you blew up a warehouse full of Russian mobsters, talked down a dying woman with a gun, and survived your first month as a DeLuca without getting killed. Destiny smiled. Yeah, I'd say you belong. A soft cry came from the nursery down the hall. Grace. Elena moved automatically, her body responding before her brain caught up. She found Grace in her crib, tiny fists waving, face scrunched with irritation. Elena lifted her, and the baby immediately settled, dark eyes fixing on Elena's face with that uncanny intensity. "Hey little one," Elena murmured. "You trying to steal the show today?" Grace made a small sound that might have been agreement. Over the past 3 weeks, Elena had fallen completely, utterly in love with her sister. Grace was growing, thriving, becoming more alert every day. She smiled now, real smiles that lit up her whole face. She tracked movement with her eyes. She made sounds that weren't quite words but felt like communication. And she preferred Elena over everyone else, including Marco. "She knows," Marco had said one night watching Elena rock Grace to sleep. "Somehow she knows you saved her. That you've been protecting her from the beginning." Maybe. Or maybe Grace just felt safe with Elena. Maybe she recognized something in her sister that she didn't find in anyone else. Whatever it was, Elena treasured it. This tiny person had given her something she'd never had before. Unconditional love. No strings. No expectations. Just pure simple trust. "Come on," Elena said softly. "Let's get you ready. Today's a big day." The meeting was set for noon. Marco had called together what remained of his organization. The captains, lieutenants, and senior members who'd survived the war with the Bratva and the purge of traitors. They were gathering in the main conference room of DeLuca Holdings, the legitimate corporation that served as the front for Marco's operations. Elena had never attended one of these meetings. Had never been invited into the inner circle. Till now. "You don't have to do this," Marco said as they rode the elevator to the top floor. He held Grace, who was dressed in a tiny pink dress that made Elena's heart squeeze. "I can handle the transition without you." "But you shouldn't have to," Elena said. "And besides, they need to see me. Need to know I'm real. That I'm committed." "They need to know you're dangerous," Vincent corrected from behind them. "That you're not just Marco's daughter, but someone who can hold her own in this world." Elena looked at him. "And am I dangerous?" Vincent smiled slightly. "You burned 20 men alive without hesitation. Talked down a suicidal woman with a gun. Survived 3 assassination attempts in 3 weeks. Elena. You're dangerous." The elevator doors opened. The conference room was full. 20 men and 3 women, all in expensive suits, all wearing the careful masks of people who'd spent their lives hiding what they really thought. They rose when Marco entered, a sign of respect that was equal parts genuine and self-preservation. Marco took his seat at the head of the table. Elena stood behind him holding Grace, very deliberately visible. "Thank you all for coming," Marco began. "I know the past month has been difficult. We've lost good people. Faced threats from outside and betrayal from within. But we're still here. Still standing. And that's because this family is built on more than just blood and violence. It's built on loyalty." He let the word hang in the air. "Some of you have been with me for years. Decades even. You've proven yourselves time and time again. Others are newer, but you've shown your worth through your actions. And I'm grateful for all of you." Marco paused. "But I need you to understand something. The DeLuca family is changing. Has to change. Because the world is changing and we either adapt or we die." Murmurs rippled through the room. "What kind of changes?" one of the captains asked. A man named Thomas Patterson, mid-50s, old school. "The kind that mean we focus less on the business that brings heat and more on legitimate operations," Marco said. "I'm not talking about going completely clean. That's not realistic. But I am talking about being smarter. Less visible. More strategic." "Why?" Thomas pressed. "We've operated the same way for 3 generations. Why change now?" Marco gestured to Elena. "Because of her. And because of this." Elena stepped forward, still holding Grace. Every eye in the room turned to her. "Most of you have heard the rumors by now," Marco continued. "So let me confirm them. This is Elena Maria DeLuca. My daughter. The one I gave away 26 years ago to protect her from this world. And this," he looked at Grace, "is her sister. My other daughter. Grace." The room erupted in whispers. Marco held up a hand for silence. "I gave Elena away because I thought separation was protection. I thought if I erased her from my life she'd be safe. I was wrong. She ended up alone, vulnerable, struggling to survive in a system that failed her at every turn. And when I think about Grace growing up the same way, experiencing the same pain." He shook his head. I can't do it. I won't. So you're going soft, Thomas said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. I'm becoming a father, Marco corrected. There's a difference. And yes, that means making choices I wouldn't have made before. Showing mercy where I might have shown violence. Building something my daughters can be proud of instead of just something that keeps us rich and powerful. With all due respect, boss, another captain spoke up, Sarah Reeves, sharp and calculating. This organization doesn't run on mercy. It runs on fear. On respect earned through strength. If you start going soft, people will see that as weakness. They'll come for us. They already came for us, Elena said, her voice cutting through the room. And they failed. All eyes turned to her. 3 weeks ago the Bratva came for my sister, Elena continued. They thought Marco would break. That he'd be too distracted by grief and fear to fight back. But they were wrong. We hit them first. Hit them hard. And now their entire New York operation is gone. Not because Marco showed strength through violence, but because he showed strength through strategy. Through family. You're a waitress, Thomas said dismissively. What do you know about how this world works? I know more than you think, Elena shot back. I know what it's like to be powerless. To be nobody. To have people look through you like you don't exist. And I know that the only reason I'm standing here today is because someone finally chose to protect me instead of using me. She walked around the table, stopping directly in front of Thomas. You want to know if Marco's going soft? Ask the 20 Bratva soldiers buried under a warehouse in Red Hook. Ask Viktor Kozlov. Oh wait, you can't because Marco put a bullet in his head for betraying this family. Ask Dmitry Volkov, except he's dead too. Thomas's expression shifted. Uncertainty replacing contempt. Marco hasn't gone soft, Elena said quietly. He's gotten smarter. And if you can't see the difference, then maybe you're the one who doesn't belong here anymore. The room went silent. Elena walked back to Marco's side, her heart pounding but her expression calm. Marco smiled. As my daughter was saying, we're not going soft. We're evolving. And anyone who wants to be part of that evolution is welcome. Anyone who doesn't. He shrugged. There's the door. No one moved. Good, Marco said. Then let's talk about the future. The meeting lasted 3 hours. They discussed territory, operations, legitimate business ventures, and the restructuring of the family hierarchy. Marco was creating a new position. A second-in-command who would handle day-to-day operations while he focused on strategy and protection. That position would go to Vincent. Everyone agreed. But Marco also announced something else. Something that sent shockwaves through the room. Elena will be joining the family business, he said. Not as a figurehead. Not as some symbolic gesture. But as a full member with voting rights, territory oversight, and decision-making power. The room exploded in protests. She's not trained, someone shouted. She doesn't know the business, another voice. She's a liability. Marco let them argue for exactly 30 seconds. Then he stood and the room fell silent. Elena destroyed the Bratva's New York operation with 5 people and a box of matches, he said coldly. She negotiated a hostage situation that could have ended with my daughter dead. She survived multiple assassination attempts and kept Grace safe when trained professionals couldn't. So tell me, what exactly hasn't she proven? No answer. She's my daughter, Marco continued. My blood. My heir. And she's earned her place in this family through actions, not just DNA. If anyone has a problem with that, we can settle it right now. Outside. Alone. The threat was clear. The room stayed silent. Elena, Marco said, turning to her. Do you accept? Elena looked at Grace in her arms. At this tiny person who represented everything pure and good in a world full of darkness. At the life she could give her sister if she had the power to protect her. To shape the family into something better. I accept, Elena said. On one condition. Marco raised an eyebrow. What condition? We create a legitimate foundation, Elena said. For children in the foster system. Real funding, real programs, real change. I don't want other kids growing up the way I did. Alone, unwanted, forgotten. If I'm going to be a DeLuca, if I'm going to have this power, I want to use some of it for good. The room was so quiet you could hear Grace's soft breathing. Marco's eyes filled with pride. Done. Vincent, make it happen. The Elena Maria DeLuca Foundation for Children. Full funding. Full support. Vincent nodded, already making notes. Anything else? Marco asked Elena. Yes, Elena said. I want Destiny as my assistant. Someone I trust. Someone who understands the world outside this bubble. Also done, Marco said. Elena took a breath. Then I'm in. All the way. The room erupted in applause. Reluctant from some, genuine from others, but applause nonetheless. Elena had just become part of the DeLuca empire. After the meeting, Elena found herself alone with Marco in his office. Grace had fallen asleep, nestled in Elena's arms, peaceful and perfect. You were amazing in there, Marco said quietly. Maria would have been so proud. Tell me about her, Elena said. My mother. I want to know everything. Marco smiled, sad but genuine. She was sunshine. That's the only way I can describe her. She lit up every room she walked into. Made everyone feel like they mattered. She loved to read, spent hours in the library just devouring books. And she was stubborn. God, she was stubborn. Once she decided something, nothing could change her mind. Sounds familiar, Elena said. You're exactly like her, Marco agreed. The way you stand up for what's right. The way you protect people. The way you see the world, not as it is but as it could be. That's all Maria. Did she know? That she was dying? No, Marco said. It happened so fast. One moment everything was fine and then, she was gone. I barely had time to hold you before my father took you away. Told me it was for the best. That Maria would have wanted you safe. He paused. I've spent 26 years wondering if that was true. If she would have agreed to give you away. Or if she would have fought for you the way you fought for Grace. I think she would have fought, Elena said softly. Because that's what mothers do. Marco nodded. I think you're right. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Elena asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the cabin. Do you regret it? Killing Antonio? Marco was quiet for a long time. Yes and no, he finally said. I regret not knowing the truth. Not understanding that he was trying to protect Grace in his own broken way. But Elena, he was still selling information to the Bratva. Still planning to run with my daughter. Whether his intentions were good or not, the result would have been the same. Grace lost to me forever. So you'd do it again? I don't know, Marco admitted. And that uncertainty, that's new for me. Before Grace, I never questioned my decisions. Never looked back. But now. He looked at his sleeping daughter. Now I wonder if there's another way. Better way. If violence is always the answer or just the easiest one. I think, Elena said carefully, that violence should be the last resort. Not the first. And that's what I want to teach Grace. That power isn't about how many people you can hurt. It's about how many people you can protect. Marco smiled. You're going to change this family, Elena. Already are changing it. Good, Elena said. Because it needs changing. A knock interrupted them. Vincent entered, his expression serious. Boss, we have a situation. The feds just served warrants on 3 of our front businesses. They're looking for evidence of racketeering. Marco's expression hardened. Who gave them the tip? We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they have detailed information. Account numbers, shipment records, the works. Vincent paused. This is coordinated. Professional. Someone with access to our systems. Another traitor, Elena said. Looks that way, Vincent confirmed. Marco stood. Then we find them. Elena, take Grace to the nursery. This might take a while. But Elena shook her head. No. I told you I was all in. That means this too. Destiny can watch Grace. You and I need to figure out who's trying to destroy this family. Marco looked like he wanted to argue. But then he saw the determination in Elena's eyes and nodded. He said. Then let's get to work. They spent the next 6 hours poring over records, tracking access logs, interviewing employees. The federal investigation was real. Vincent confirmed that much. And it was targeting the heart of Marco's operations. This isn't just about bringing you down, Elena said, studying the subpoena list. This is about dismantling the entire organization. Every business, every asset, every connection. Someone wants to destroy the DeLuca family completely. Someone with inside knowledge, Marco agreed. Someone who knows exactly where to hit us to cause maximum damage. Elena looked at the list of businesses being investigated. And something clicked. Wait, she said. These 3 businesses, they're all connected to one person. All managed by the same accountant. Vincent pulled up the file. Richard Chin. He's been with us for 8 years. Handles most of our financial operations. Where is he now? Elena asked. He called in sick this morning, Vincent said. Said he had the flu. Elena and Marco exchanged glances. He's running, Elena said. Or already gone, Marco added. He turned to Vincent. Get me everything. Home address, family, known associates, everywhere he might go. I want him found in the next hour. Vincent was already moving. Marco looked at Elena. If Richard's the leak, if he gave the feds everything. Then we're in trouble, Elena finished. Real trouble. The kind that could bring down the entire organization. Unless we can prove he falsified evidence, Marco said thoughtfully. Plant doubt in the investigation. Make the feds question their source. Can we do that? We can try. Marco's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his expression went dark. Understood. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Elena. Richard's at the airport. He's trying to board a flight to Switzerland. Then we stop him, Elena said. Elena, this could get messy. I don't care, she interrupted. He tried to destroy our family. Tried to take down everything you've built. I'm not letting him get away with that. Marco studied her for a moment. Then he smiled. Let's go get our accountant. They arrived at JFK 40 minutes later with a team of 6 men. Vincent had already located Richard, gate 27B, waiting for a flight to Zurich that departed in 20 minutes. We can't do this publicly, Vincent warned. Too many witnesses. Airport security. TSA. Then we don't, Marco said. Elena, you're with me. Vincent, position your men at the exits. If he runs, I want him caught before he reaches the street. They moved through the airport like predators, casual but focused. Elena spotted Richard first. A thin man in his 40s, nervous, checking his watch every few seconds. He had a single carry-on bag and the look of someone who'd burned every bridge behind him. Mr. Chin, Marco said pleasantly, appearing beside him. Leaving town. Richard jumped, his face going pale. Marco. I was just fleeing the country with stolen financial records? Marco suggested. Yeah, we know. Richard's hand moved toward his pocket. Elena stepped forward, blocking his path. Don't, she said quietly. Whatever you're reaching for, it won't save you. Richard stared at her. You're the daughter. The one from the diner. That's right, Elena said. And you tried to destroy my family. My sister's future. So whatever happens next, you earned it. I didn't have a choice. Richard's voice rose, drawing attention. Marco's hand clamped down on his shoulder, steering him away from the gate. Let's discuss this somewhere private, Marco said. His tone was pleasant, but the threat was clear. They moved Richard through a service corridor that Vincent had somehow gotten access to. Once they were away from cameras and witnesses, Marco released him. Talk, Marco commanded. Who approached you? Who convinced you to sell us out? Richard's hands shook. Nobody approached me. I went to them. To the feds. Because I couldn't. I couldn't be part of this anymore. Part of what? Elena asked. The violence. The death. The bodies that kept piling up. Richard's voice cracked. I thought this was just about money. About accounting. But then people started dying. Victor. Antonio. 20 people in that warehouse. And I realized I was helping fund murder. So I decided to stop it. To end the DeLuca empire before more innocent people died. Innocent. Marco's voice was cold. Victor betrayed us to the Bratva. Antonio tried to kidnap my daughter. The men in that warehouse were trying to kill my family. What part of any of that is innocent? The people caught in the crossfire. Richard shouted. The nurses. The guards. The civilians who just happened to be in the wrong place. Your war doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. Elena felt the words hit her. Because he was right. Destiny had been stabbed. Innocence had died. The violence of Marco's world didn't stay contained. It spread, infected, destroyed everything it touched. You're right, Elena said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at her. You're right, she repeated. The violence does hurt innocent people. And we need to do better. Need to be better. But Richard running to the feds? Trying to destroy the entire organization? That doesn't fix anything. It just creates a power vacuum that someone worse will fill. Someone who doesn't care about collateral damage at all. At least I'll have tried, Richard said. At least I'll know I didn't just stand by and watch people die. And what about the people who depend on us? Elena pressed. The legitimate businesses that employ thousands? The communities that rely on DeLuca investments? You destroy us, you destroy them too. Is that justice? Or just revenge? Richard looked torn. I didn't think about. That's the problem, Marco said. You thought taking us down would make you a hero. But all you'd be doing is trading one evil for another. Worse actually, because at least I protect what's mine. The people who come after me won't care about anything except profit and power. So what do I do? Richard asked desperately. How do I live with knowing I've helped fund death? You help us change, Elena said. You work with us to make the family better. Cleaner. More legitimate. You use your knowledge to build something good instead of destroying everything. And if I don't? Marco's expression went cold. Then you don't get on that plane. You don't get to retire to Switzerland. You don't get to walk away with your conscience clean while my family burns. The threat hung in the air. Richard looked between them, Marco's cold fury and Elena's steady determination, and made his choice. Okay, he said quietly. Hey, I'll help. I'll recant my testimony, tell the feds the information was falsified. I'll stay and help you build something better. Why should we trust you? Marco asked. Because I'm tired, Richard said simply. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of watching good people make terrible choices because they think there's no other way. He looked at Elena. She's right. Destroying you doesn't fix anything. But maybe working with you does. Marco studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Vincent will escort you to our lawyers. You'll prepare a statement retracting everything you told the feds. And then you'll come work directly for me. Under supervision, of course. One wrong move and... I know, Richard interrupted. Trust me. I know. Vincent appeared and led Richard away. Elena and Marco stood alone in the corridor. That was risky, Marco said. Letting him live. Necessary, Elena corrected. Killing him would have just proven his point, that we solve every problem with violence. But giving him a second chance, showing mercy, that proves we're capable of change. Marco pulled her into a hug. You're going to be the best thing that ever happened to this family, you know that? Elena hugged him back. I'm going to try. They returned to the penthouse as the sun set over Manhattan. Grace was awake and fussy, and Elena took her gratefully, needing to hold something pure and innocent after the day's darkness. Destiny appeared with warm bottles. How'd it go? We saved the accountant and the family, Elena said. Win-win. Only in your world does that count as a win, Destiny said, but she was smiling. Marco disappeared to make calls, to begin the damage control that would save them from federal prosecution. Vincent coordinated with lawyers and officials, trading favors and information to make the investigation disappear. And Elena sat with Grace, feeding her, watching the city lights flicker on below them, thinking about everything that had changed. For weeks ago she'd been nobody. A waitress with no future, no family, no hope. Now she was somebody. Part of something bigger than herself. Connected to people who would fight for her, who would die for her, who would help her build a better world. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely overwhelming. But it was hers. What do you think, Grace? Elena whispered. Did we make the right choice? Taking this power? Becoming part of this family? Grace looked up at her with those dark, knowing eyes and made a small sound that might have been agreement. Elena smiled. Yeah. I think so too. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. New threats. New choices between violence and mercy, between justice and revenge. But tonight Elena was home. With family. And that was enough. 6 months later. The Elena Maria DeLuca Foundation for Children officially opened on a crisp October morning, exactly 6 months to the day after Elena had found Grace in that diner bathroom. Elena stood in front of the building, a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn, warm and welcoming with bright murals painted by local artists, and felt something she'd never experienced before. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. Not the quiet that comes from giving up, but the deep, settled knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. You ready? Destiny appeared beside her, clipboard in hand, wearing a professional pantsuit that still looked somehow effortlessly stylish. She'd taken to her role as Elena's assistant like she was born for it. Organized, efficient, and completely unimpressed by the DeLuca name. Ready as I'll ever be, Elena said. Inside, the foundation was buzzing with activity. Social workers, counselors, volunteers, and staff members preparing for the grand opening. They'd spent 6 months building this. A comprehensive support system for children in foster care. Tutoring programs. Mental health services. Job training. Housing assistance for those aging out of the system. Everything Elena had needed when she was young and alone and desperate. Everything she was determined other kids would have. The mayor's here, Destiny said, checking her list. So is the city council rep. A bunch of press. And she smiled. Some special guests in the back conference room. Elena's heart squeezed. They came. All of them. Elena made her way through the building, greeting people, answering questions, feeling the weight of what they'd built settle on her shoulders. It was good weight. The kind that came from purpose. The conference room door was closed. Elena took a breath and opened it. Inside, sitting around the table, were 7 teenagers. Ages 14 to 17. All current foster kids who'd agreed to be part of the Foundation's pilot program. And every single one of them looked exactly how Elena had felt at their age. Guarded, suspicious, waiting for the catch. Hi, Elena said, closing the door behind her. I'm Elena. We know who you are, one girl said. She was maybe 16, dark-haired, with the kind of hardness in her eyes that came from seeing too much too young. You're the DeLuca daughter. The one who went from nothing to everything. That's one way to put it, Elena agreed. She pulled out a chair and sat, making herself level with them. What's your name? Jessica, the girl said after a pause. Jessica Torres. Nice to meet you, Jessica. Elena looked around the table. I know you're all wondering why you're here. Probably thinking this is some rich person's charity project. That I'm doing this to feel good about myself or get good PR or whatever. Nods around the table. Suspicion confirmed. You're right to think that, Elena said. Most people who do this kind of work are doing it for the wrong reasons. But I'm going to tell you the truth, and you can decide if you believe me or not. She took a breath. I was you. 20 years ago, I was sitting in a room like this, listening to some adult tell me about a program or a placement or an opportunity that was going to change my life. And every single time it was bullshit. They'd put me somewhere new, promise things would be different, and then 3 months later I'd be right back where I started. Alone, unwanted, and running out of hope. The teenagers were listening now, really listening. I aged out of foster care at 18 with nothing. No family, no money, no support. I worked 3 jobs trying to survive. Lived in places that should have been condemned. Went days without eating because I couldn't afford food and rent. And the whole time I was angry. So angry that nobody had fought for me. That nobody had seen me as worth protecting. Jessica's eyes were wet. So what changed? I found someone who needed me, Elena said simply. A baby. Abandoned and alone. And when I looked at her I saw myself. And I decided that I would be for her what nobody had been for me. A protector. Fighter. Someone who wouldn't give up. The mop boss's baby, one of the boys said. We saw the news. Grace, Elena confirmed. My sister. And yes, finding her led me to my biological father. Led me to wealth and power and all the things I'd never had. But that's not what saved me. What saved me was choosing to protect someone else. Choosing to be the person I'd needed when I was your age. She leaned forward, her voice intense. That's what this foundation is about. Not charity. Not pity. But giving you the tools to protect yourselves and each other. To build something real. To become the people you want to be instead of just surviving until you age out. What if we don't know who we want to be? Jessica asked quietly. Then we figure it out together, Elena said. That's what family does. The word hung in the air. You're saying we're family? One of the younger girls asked skeptically. I'm saying you can be, Elena corrected. If you want. No pressure. No strings. Just support. Real support. The kind that doesn't disappear when things get hard. She stood and moved to the window looking out at the street below. In 6 months, this foundation has helped place 43 kids in stable housing, gotten 32 into counseling, helped 18 get jobs. Those are just numbers. But behind each one is a person who's a little less alone, a little less scared, a little more hopeful. Elena turned back to them. I want you 7 to be part of something bigger. A youth advisory board. You'll help decide how we spend money, what programs we create, who we help. Because you know what kids in the system need better than any adult ever could. Why us? Another boy asked. Because you're still fighting, Elena said simply. Still showing up. Still hoping that maybe, just maybe, things can be different. That's the kind of strength this foundation needs. That's the kind of people I want to build this with. Silence filled the room. Then Jessica spoke. What do we have to do? Show up, Elena said. Be honest. Help each other. And trust that someone's finally in your corner. Really, truly in your corner. And if we can't trust that? Elena smiled. Then I'll prove it. Every single day for as long as it takes. Because that's what you deserve. All of you. The grand opening was a massive success. Speeches were given. Ribbons were cut. Press photos were taken. The mayor praised the foundation's mission. The city council representative promised city funding. And Elena stood in the center of it all, feeling equal parts proud and overwhelmed. But the moment that mattered most came 3 hours later, when the official guest had left and only the staff and volunteers remained. Jessica approached Elena hesitant. That speech. About being alone and angry and running out of hope. That was real. Every word, Elena confirmed. Then you really do get it, Jessica said. What it's like. I do. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Then, my mom's in prison. Drug charges. I haven't seen her in 2 years. My dad. I don't even know who he is. And I've been in 7 different placements in 3 years. Sometimes I think about just giving up, you know? Running away or worse. Elena's heart broke. I know. I had those thoughts too. How'd you stop? I didn't, Elena admitted. I still have them sometimes. Still wake up in the middle of the night convinced that everything I have is going to disappear. That I'm going to end up alone again. But then I look at Grace and I look at what we're building here and I remember that I survived for a reason. That all that pain had a purpose. What purpose? To help kids like you, Elena said. To make sure you don't have to fight as hard as I did. That you don't have to be as alone as I was. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I believe you. But I want to. Then that's enough, Elena said. She pulled a card from her pocket and handed it to Jessica. That's my personal number. Not the foundation line. Not some assistant. Me. If you need anything, anything at all, you call. Day or night. And I'll answer. Jessica stared at the card like it was made of gold. Why would you do that? Because someone should have done it for me, Elena said. And now I get to be that someone for you. Jessica's tears spilled over. Elena pulled her into a hug, and the girl clung to her like she was drowning and Elena was the only solid thing in reach. I've got you, Elena whispered. I promise. I've got you. That evening, Elena returned to the penthouse exhausted but fulfilled. Destiny had already headed home. She'd moved into her own place 2 months ago, a beautiful apartment that Marco had insisted on gifting her, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. Not quite alone. Grace was in her nursery, awake and babbling to herself. At 7 months old, she was starting to show her personality, stubborn, curious, and absolutely fearless. She'd started crawling last week and was now determined to explore every corner of the penthouse. Hey, troublemaker, Elena said, scooping her up. Grace squealed with delight, tiny hands grabbing Elena's face. You trying to escape again? Grace babbled something that sounded almost like words. That's what I thought, Elena said, carrying her sister to the living room. Marco was there, sitting by the window with a glass of whiskey, looking out at the city. He turned when they entered and his face transformed, the hard lines softening, the cold eyes warming. How'd it go? He asked. Better than I could have hoped, Elena said, settling on the couch with Grace in her lap. The kids were skeptical, but that's good. Means they're smart. Means they're not going to be taken advantage of again. Like you were, Marco said quietly. Like I was, Elena agreed. Marco moved to sit beside them. Grace immediately reached for him and he took her, cradling his daughter with a gentleness that still surprised Elena sometimes. This man who'd killed without hesitation, who'd built an empire on fear and violence, held Grace like she was made of glass. "I got a call today," Marco said. "From Isabel." Elena's attention sharpened. Isabel had been in hospice care for the past 4 months, her condition deteriorating rapidly. But true to his word, Marco had allowed her supervised visits with Grace. They'd happened every week, sometimes multiple times a week, with medical staff present and security watching. Slowly, impossibly, Isabel and Elena had developed something like understanding. Not friendship. Not forgiveness. But an acknowledgement that they were both trying to protect the same person. "How is she?" Elena asked. "Not good," Marco said heavily. "The doctors think it's a matter of days now. Maybe a week. He wants to see Grace. One last time." Elena's throat tightened. "Then we should go. All of us." "Elena, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," Elena interrupted. "Grace should have the chance to say goodbye to her mother. And Isabel deserves to leave this world knowing her daughter was loved." Marco studied her. "You've grown so much in 6 months. Sometimes I look at you and barely recognize the scared woman from the diner." "I'm still scared," Elena admitted. "But now I'm scared for the right reasons. Not for myself. For Grace. For the kids at the foundation. For the family we're building." "The family we're building," Marco repeated, smiling slightly. "I like the sound of that." Grace yawned, snuggling into Marco's chest. He held her closer and Elena watched the two of them, her father and her sister, and felt something click into place. This was home. This was family. This was what she'd been searching for her entire life. They visited Isabel the next day. The hospice facility was quiet and peaceful, all soft colors and gentle lighting. Isabel's room overlooked a garden and she lay in bed surrounded by flowers. Gifts from people who'd loved her, who'd known her before the tragedy, before the loss, before everything went wrong. She looked tiny, fragile, more ghost than woman. But when she saw Grace, her eyes lit up. "Pie baby," she whispered. "Pie beautiful baby." Marco carried Grace to the bedside, and Isabel reached out with trembling hands to touch her daughter's face. Grace stared at her mother with wide eyes, seemingly sensing that this was important. "Thank you," Isabel said to Marco. "For letting me see her. I know I didn't deserve." "You're her mother," Marco interrupted. "Whatever happened between us, that doesn't change." Isabel's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Elena. "And you saved her. Twice. Once from the bathroom and once from me." Elena moved closer. "You saved yourself. You chose to let her live. That took courage." "Or cowardice," Isabel said bitterly. "I couldn't do it. Couldn't hurt her even when I wanted to. Even when I thought it would end my pain." "That wasn't cowardice," Elena said firmly. "That was love. Choosing Grace's life over your revenge. That was the bravest thing you could have done." Isabel's tears spilled over. "Will you tell her about me? When she's older? Will you tell her that I loved her even though I was broken? Even though I made terrible choices?" "I will," Elena promised. "I'll tell her about you and Antonio. About how you loved each other. About how you tried to protect her in your own way." "Don't lie," Isabel said. "Don't make me into something I wasn't. Tell her the truth. That I was weak and angry and so lost in grief that I almost destroyed everything. Tell her." She looked at Grace. "Tell her that her mother's greatest achievement was letting her go. Letting her live. Giving her a chance I couldn't give myself." "I'll tell her," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. Isabel held Grace for 30 minutes, murmuring to her in Italian, singing soft lullabies, memorizing every detail of her daughter's face. And when it was time to leave, when Grace was getting fussy and needed to be fed, Isabel handed her back with shaking hands. "Thank you," she said again. "For everything. For being the mother I couldn't be. For protecting her when I couldn't. For loving her when I was too broken to love anything." "She'll always know you loved her," Elena said. "I promise." Isabel smiled. A real smile, peaceful and accepting. "Then I can go. I can finally rest." They left as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Isabel passed away 3 days later in her sleep, with photographs of Grace surrounding her bed. The funeral was small and private. Just Marco, Elena, Vincent, and a handful of people who'd known Isabel before tragedy consumed her life. They buried her next to Antonio in a cemetery overlooking the ocean. Elena held Grace during the service, whispering quietly to her sister about the woman who'd brought her into this world. About love and loss and the complicated ways we hurt each other even when we're trying our hardest not to. Your mother loved you, Elena murmured. Never doubt that. She was broken and she made mistakes, but she loved you. And in the end she chose you. She chose your life over her pain. That's what real love looks like. Grace, too young to understand but somehow sensing the gravity of the moment, stayed quiet and still. After the service, Marco approached Elena. I've been thinking, he said, about the future. About what kind of legacy I want to leave. What kind do you want? Elena asked. The kind where Grace grows up safe. Where you get to help hundreds of kids through your foundation. Where the DeLuca name means something other than fear and violence. He paused. I'm stepping back from the business. Not completely. I'm not naive enough to think I can just walk away. But I'm handing day-to-day operations to Vincent. I'm going to focus on the legitimate businesses, on building something Grace can be proud of. Elena stared at him. You're serious? Completely, Marco said. You were right 6 months ago. The family needs to change. And I'm tired, Elena. Tired of the violence. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of wondering when the next war will start. I want to spend the time I have left being a father. To both of you. You really mean it, Elena said wonderingly. I do. Marco smiled. You changed me. Showed me there was another way. Better way. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you believed I could be. Elena hugged him and Marco held her tight. This daughter he'd lost and found. This woman who'd saved his family and his soul. I'm proud of you, Dad, Elena whispered. Marco's breath caught. Say that again. I'm proud of you. And I love you. Marco's shoulders shook. I love you too. So much. More than I ever thought possible. They stood there, father and daughter, while the sun set over the ocean and a new chapter of their lives began. 1 year later. The Elena Maria DeLuca Foundation had grown exponentially. 3 locations now. 200 kids helped. Dozens of success stories. Elena had become a fixture in the foster care community, speaking at conferences, advocating for policy changes, using the DeLuca name and resources to create real, lasting change. She'd also discovered she was good at the family business. Really good. She had a gift for negotiation, for seeing solutions others missed, for knowing when to show strength and when to show mercy. Under her influence, the DeLuca organization had shifted. Less violent crime, more legitimate enterprises, better relationships with the community. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of darkness, still times when violence was necessary. But it was better. And getting better every day. Grace had just turned 18 months old. She was walking now, talking in broken sentences, and had wrapped every person in the family around her tiny finger. She loved books, music, and trying to feed herself with hilarious results. And she adored Elena. Cried when Elena left. Lit up when she returned. Called her Lena, in a voice that made Elena's heart melt every single time. Today was special. Today, Elena was officially adopting Grace as her legal daughter. The court proceedings had been complicated. Marco was Grace's biological father, and there were questions about why he'd agreed to let Elena adopt. But in the end, Marco's testimony had been simple and devastating. Elena saved my daughter's life. She's been Grace's primary caregiver since birth. She's the person Grace calls for when she's scared, when she's hurt, when she's happy. In every way that matters, Elena is Grace's mother. I'm asking the court to recognize legally what's been true emotionally from the beginning. The judge had agreed. So now Elena Cruz, Elena DeLuca, stood in front of a courthouse holding her daughter. Her sister. Her child. All 3 at once. How does it feel? Destiny asked, appearing beside her with a massive grin. Terrifying, Elena admitted. Overwhelming. Perfect. That's parenthood for you, Destiny said. She'd met someone 6 months ago. A teacher named James who made her laugh and didn't care about the DeLuca connection, and they were talking about moving in together. You ready for this? The official responsibility? The late nights and early mornings and constant worry. I've been doing it for a year already, Elena pointed out. True, Destiny conceded. But now it's official. Now you're mom. The word settled into Elena's chest and took root. She looked down at Grace, who was chewing on her own fingers and babbling contentedly. Yeah, Elena said softly. I'm ready. That evening, the entire family gathered at the penthouse for a celebration. Marco had cooked. Turned out he was actually an excellent chef when he had time, and the apartment smelled like garlic wine and fresh bread. Vincent was there with his girlfriend, Destiny, and James, a handful of Marco's most trusted people, and the 7 teenagers from the Foundation's Youth Advisory Board, who'd become like younger siblings to Elena over the past year. Jessica had thrived. She was enrolled in community college now, studying social work. She wanted to help kids the way Elena had helped her. They ate and laughed and told stories. Grace sat in her high chair, making a mess of her pasta and looking delighted about it. And Elena watched it all. This family she'd built from nothing, this life she'd created from broken pieces, and felt something she'd never experienced before. Completeness. Speech. Destiny called out, raising her wine glass. Everyone turned to Elena expectantly. Elena stood still, holding Grace. I'm not good at speeches, but I want to say something anyway. The room quieted. 2 years ago I was alone. Broke. Working a dead-end job and wondering if life would ever get better. And then one stormy night I found a baby in a bathroom. And everything changed. Elena looked at Grace. This little person saved my life. She gave me purpose. Family. Hope. She led me to a father I never knew I had. To friends who became family. To a life I never thought I deserved. Her voice grew thick with emotion. But more than that, she taught me that family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's showing up. It's fighting for each other even when it's hard. It's choosing love over hate, mercy over revenge, hope over despair. Elena looked around the room. Everyone here, you've all taught me that. You've all become my family. And I'm grateful. So grateful. To family, Marco said, raising his glass. To family, everyone echoed. They drank and then conversation resumed, laughter filling the penthouse. Elena carried Grace to the window, looking out at the city that had once seemed so cold and hostile. Now it looked different. Full of possibility. Full of light. You know what, Grace? Elena whispered. I think we're going to be okay. More than okay. I think we're going to be happy. Really, truly happy. Grace looked up at her with those dark, knowing eyes and smiled. And Elena smiled back. Because she'd spent 26 years being nobody. 26 years alone and afraid and convinced she didn't matter. But she'd been wrong. He mattered. She belonged. He was loved. And now she had the rest of her life to prove that one act of courage, one choice to protect someone helpless, could change everything. For Grace. For the kids at the foundation. For the family they were building. For herself. 5 years later. Grace stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting her flower crown with serious concentration. She was 6 years old now, beautiful and bright and absolutely fearless. Lena, she called. Is it straight? Elena appeared in the doorway, her heart swelling as it always did when she looked at her daughter. Perfect. You look perfect. Really? Grace spun around. Because Destiny said I looked like a fairy princess, but grandfather said I looked like a warrior queen, and I don't know which one I want to be. Why not both? Elena suggested. Grace's face lit up. Both. Yes. A warrior fairy princess queen. Exactly, Elena said, kneeling to be eye level with her daughter. You can be anything you want to be. That's the whole point. Today was the Foundation's 5th anniversary celebration. It had grown beyond anything Elena could have imagined. 10 locations now, thousands of kids helped. A national model for foster care support. And Grace was going to cut the ribbon at the newest facility. Am I really giving a speech? Grace asked nervously. Just a few words, Elena assured her. Just tell everyone why you think the foundation is important. Because kids deserve families, Grace said immediately. Real families who love them. Like you love me. Elena's throat tightened. Exactly like that. They told Grace the truth, of course. About how Elena had found her. About Marco being her biological father. About Isabel and Antonio and everything that had happened. They told her in age-appropriate pieces, answering questions as she grew old enough to understand. And Grace had processed it all with remarkable wisdom. I have 2 mothers, she'd said once when she was 5. One who gave birth to me and one who raised me. And they both loved me. That makes me lucky. So simple. So pure. So Grace. Now at 6 she understood more. Understood that her family was complicated, that they came from darkness, that the DeLuca name carried weight in history and blood. But she also understood love. Understood protection. Understood that sometimes broken people could build beautiful things. Ready to go? Elena asked. Ready, Grace declared. Then she paused. Lena, when I grow up, can I work at the foundation? Can I help kids like you helped me? Elena's heart shattered and reformed in the same breath. If that's what you want, then absolutely. It is, Grace said with certainty. Because everyone deserves a family. Everyone deserves to be loved. Yes, Elena whispered. They do. They walked out of the penthouse together, mother and daughter, to greet a world that was brighter because they were in it. The celebration was magnificent. Hundreds of people attended. Kids the foundation had helped, donors, community leaders, and every single member of the DeLuca family. Marco gave a speech about how Elena had changed not just his life, but the entire family's trajectory. How she'd proven that strength came from compassion, not just power. How she'd built something that would outlast all of them. Vincent spoke about transformation, about how organizations could evolve, about how one person's courage could inspire hundreds to be better. Destiny spoke about friendship, about trust, about how Elena had shown her that family was a choice you made every single day. And then it was Grace's turn. She stood at the podium. They'd brought a step stool so she could reach the microphone, and looked out at the crowd with absolute confidence. Hi, she said. I'm Grace. And this foundation is named after my mom, Elena. Applause rippled through the crowd. My mom found me when I was a baby, Grace continued. I was alone and scared and she kept me safe. She didn't have to. She could have called the police or given me to someone else. But she didn't. She chose to love me. Elena, standing in the front row, felt tears streaming down her face. And now she helps lots of kids who are alone and scared, Grace said. She gives them families and homes and people who fight for them. Because my mom believes that everyone deserves to be loved. Everyone deserves to be safe. Everyone deserves a chance. Grace looked directly at Elena. Thank you, Mommy. For saving me. For loving me. For teaching me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when things get hard. You showed up for me. And now we get to show up for everyone else. The crowd erupted in applause. Elena rushed to the stage and swept Grace into her arms, both of them crying and laughing and holding on tight. Marco joined them, his own eyes wet. The three of them stood there, father, daughter, granddaughter, while cameras flashed and people cheered. 3 people who'd found each other against impossible odds. 3 people who'd built a family from broken pieces. 3 people who proved that love could heal anything, could survive anything, could transform even the darkest legacy into something beautiful. That night, after the guests had left and Grace was asleep, Elena stood on the penthouse balcony looking at the city. Destiny appeared beside her with 2 glasses of wine. Thinking deep thoughts? Just remembering, Elena said. That night at the diner. Finding Grace. Having no idea what I was getting into. Would you do it again? Destiny asked. Knowing everything that would happen? The danger, the violence, the pain. Elena didn't hesitate. In a heartbeat. Even though you almost died. Multiple times. Even though, Elena confirmed. Because Grace is worth it. This family is worth it. This life is worth it. Destiny clinked her glass against Elena's. To worth it then. To worth it, Elena echoed. They stood in comfortable silence. 2 women who'd survived everything the world threw at them and come out stronger on the other side. You know, Destiny said eventually, when I first met you I thought you were the saddest person I'd ever seen. Like you'd given up on ever being happy. I had, Elena admitted. And now. Elena smiled. Now I believe in fairy tales. In second chances. In the idea that one moment of courage can change your entire life. In families built from choice instead of blood. In love that survives impossible odds. You've become quite the optimist, Destiny observed. I've become a mother, Elena corrected. Same thing. Destiny laughed. Yeah. I suppose it is. Inside they heard Grace call out, not scared, just checking that Elena was still there. Elena went to her daughter immediately, climbing into bed beside her, holding her close. "I'm here," Elena whispered. "Always. I'm never leaving." "I know," Grace murmured, already drifting back to sleep. "You promised." And Elena had promised to always be there, always protect her, always love her. It was a promise she'd kept every single day for 6 years. A promise she'd keep for the rest of her life. Because that's what family did. That's what love meant. That's what it meant to be a DeLuca. Not the violence or the power or the empire, but the choice to show up, to fight, to protect the people who mattered most. Elena held Grace until she was deeply asleep. Then she carefully tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stood at the doorway for a long moment, just watching her daughter breathe. This was everything. This moment. This child. This life they'd built together. A poor waitress had found an abandoned baby and had no idea she was rescuing the daughter of the city's most dangerous man. But more than that, she had no idea she was rescuing herself. That in choosing to protect Grace, Elena had finally found what she'd been searching for her entire life. Home. Family. Love. Purpose. Everything. And as Elena turned off the light and closed the door, leaving Grace to dream of warrior fairy princess queens and adventures yet to come, she sent a silent thank you to the universe. Thank you for that stormy night. Thank you for that locked bathroom. Thank you for Grace. Thank you for giving me a reason to fight, to hope, to believe that broken people could build beautiful things. Thank you for giving me a family. Thank you for giving me a life worth living. Thank you. And there it is, beautiful people. The complete story of Elena and Grace. Of a waitress who became a warrior, a nobody who became somebody, a woman who found family in the most unexpected place. This journey, from that diner bathroom to the penthouse, from loneliness to love, from survival to thriving. This is what happens when we choose courage over fear. When we protect the vulnerable. When we believe that love can heal even the deepest wounds. Elena saved Grace. But really, they saved each other. I hope this story touched your heart the way it touched mine writing it. I hope it reminded you that you're never too broken to build something beautiful. That family is a choice. That one act of courage can change everything. If you loved this story, do me a huge favor. Leave a comment telling me your favorite part. Hit that like button. And subscribe so you never miss another story like this one.